All right, let's get it. Drive time, Monday afternoon, 8 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It's a nice day outside. It's a lovely April day outside. It's about 68 degrees. We've got some scattered clouds here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Looks like we're going to have a nice weather week, a spring type weather week, according to the forecast. A nice stretch of warm weather this week, and as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass today. Jam-packed Monday show. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a great weekend. A lot of great sports action to get to. We will crown a college basketball championship tonight in San Antonio, Houston, and Florida. After Saturday night's drama, a epic collapse by the Duke Blue Devils, allowing Kelvin Sampson to advance to the national championship game. Houston is going to try to win the first national championship in the history of that storied basketball program that includes names like Hakeem Olajuwon and Phi Slamma Jamma. So Houston trying to get it done out of the Big 12. Florida representing the best team in college, the best conference in college basketball, the SEC, after they were able to take care of the number one overall seed Auburn on Saturday night. So 6:50 is your tip time at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. CBS will have the coverage for you. Florida has not won a national championship since 2007, the second title they won in a back-to-back stretch under Billy Donovan with Joakim Noah and Al Horford and Corey Brewer. One of the best college basketball teams really in the 2000s. If Florida wins tonight, it will be their third national championship since the year 2000, which would tie them for second, only behind the UConn Huskies. So college basketball will crown a champ tonight. We'll talk about Saturday's action, where if you are a Duke fan, that one hurt. If you are Cooper Flagg, if you're the Knipple kid, if you're John Shire, that loss on Saturday night is going to haunt you for a long time. Of course, the immediate reaction is, does this change the plans of Cooper Flagg? I can't imagine that it does, but that conversation is taking place. And can you imagine if the Utah Jazz, who are 1-19 in their last 20 basketball games and have 3 wins since the All-Star break, luck into the number one overall pick this year and Cooper Flagg goes back to school? I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud into a microphone, but it was such a collapse. And it was not Cooper Flagg's fault. It was not Cooper's fault. But a lot of conversation about what this means for him and what it means for Duke moving forward. I thought Con Knipple was really good. I thought Duke was the better team to start off the game, but Houston was able to outscore Duke 9-0 in the final 35 seconds of the game, and they march on to the national championship. Speaking of college basketball, the latest on the Utah men's basketball situation. Ezra Ausar is now in the transfer portal. That broke over the weekend while we were off air. Alex Jensen hopped on Sean's show today. We're going to have AJ on at some point. So if you missed that, you want to hear from the new head coach of the Utes, ESPN700sports.com is where you go. So check that out. That good conversation that AJ had with Sean earlier in the day part, earlier today on the radio station during Sean's show. Speaking of the Utah Jazz, they got smoked by the Hawks. They just lose to everybody because, of course, that's the deal. It is really tough to watch. If you are continuing to watch, if you're not a basketball sicko like I am, like a lot of people in this business are, and you're still watching, credit to you or find a new hobby. 147-134, Quinn Snyder's Atlanta Hawks hung 147 on Will Hardy's Utah Jazz. The Jazz have given up 140 or more points in 3 straight games. That's only happened 3 times in Jazz history and has not happened in a number of years. This is the worst team we've ever had here. There's no doubt about it. Try to focus on the positives, exercise in futility. I guess Keontae had a career high five. Isaiah Collier with his 11th double-double. There's nothing to like about the team. There just isn't. I don't know what else to say. So they're doing this intentionally to see what they can do in the draft. So we'll get to the latest in the NBA as we are high-speed ahead to the stretch run, of course, happening now, and the playoffs right around the corner. Light night of NBA basketball. They usually just make way for the national championship game. Sacramento and Detroit, Philadelphia and Miami. So a couple of NBA games tonight. But, of course, all eyes on the college basketball national championship. 17 days away from the NFL draft. I don't know if it's a smoke screen, but Cam Ward is now moving towards your consensus number 1 pick. Latest with Shedeur Sanders, Ashton Genty, where's he going to go? And a lot of rumors surrounding the draft, which is less than 3 weeks away. So always a good time to talk a little NFL draft and a little offseason NFL football. Spring football for both Utah and BYU rolls on. A spring football scrimmage for the Utes that was open to some media members on Saturday. And, you know, Devin Dampier looks awesome. Nate Johnson's fast. Spring football, what are you going to do? But it's a nice excuse to talk about spring football and where Utah football finds themselves prior to year 2 in the Big 12. RSL gets a win. Look at that. Maybe they don't need a striker. Maybe Diego can score all the goals. 2-0 against the LA Galaxy over the weekend at America First Field. The Galaxy are your defending MLS champs, but they have not won a game all year long. And RSL sends them home with a 2-0 loss, and both of those goals scored by Diego Luna, who over the weekend was honored as the Utah Male Athlete of the Year at the State of Sport Awards. So congratulations to Diego and RSL with a much-needed 3 points. We are about 2.5 weeks away from the primary transfer window closing in the spring window. It'll open up again in the summer. And still no word on RSL bringing in some reinforcements for Pablo and his staff. There will be an announcement, I'm told, in the coming weeks, and maybe even less than that, about this ownership transition becoming official. We'll get to some of those storylines as the Miller family is about to take over. The business interest side of RSL, Ryan Smith will be out entirely, which is probably a good thing. And then Dave Blitzer will maintain a portion of ownership. And, of course, being part of that Blitzer umbrella is a good thing. So all the latest on the RSL side of things. Utah Hockey Club is getting set to finish off their year. And what a year it's been. It will not culminate in a playoff appearance, but it's been fun to have hockey here in the market. Seattle's going to be in town coming up tomorrow for a 7 o'clock drop of the puck. Alex Ovechkin is your all-time leading goal scorer in pro hockey history. And, we haven't even talked about the biggest week potentially in the world of professional golf all year long. It's Augusta week. It's Masters week. Rain knocked the players off the course today. The par 3 is set for tomorrow, and par 3 is set for Wednesday, and round 1 of the 89th playing of the Masters Championship at Augusta Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia will be Thursday. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, your two favorites. We'll get to Augusta storylines throughout the course of the show. So, like I said, a little bit of everything. There you go. The table is set for some college basketball, for some NBA basketball, for some NFL draft, for some Utah Hockey Club, for some RSL soccer, and some Masters golf. How about that? Did I leave anything off? Oh, yes, the UConn women won another national championship. Gino Ariema is 12-1 in national championship games. Wild. So the UConn women win their first title in 9 years, a 9-year title drought. That shows you the standard that UConn Hoops has when 9 years between national championships is called a drought. Baseball, too. How about that? All right, let's get into the show. Josh Furlong will be our first guest right out of the gates. Josh covers the Utes for our friends over at KSL. We'll do some Utah spring football, some Utah basketball. The Red Rocks are going to the Nationals for the 49th straight year, which is pretty remarkable. So Josh will stop by for all things Utah athletics. NBA Daily Systyle with Tom Haberstroh, who caught some strays on the show last week. After comparing Cooper Flagg to Kevin Garnett, his buddy Zach Harper hopped on the show and kind of took Tom to task a little bit. So let's create a beef between Tom and Zach today. At least that's the goal. Belle Frazier, one of our favorites from the Trib. She covers the Utah Hockey Club. We'll do a little NHL with Belle. And then Tony Parks, the voice of the Bees, longtime radio host in this market, will be live in studio as we are now in the midst of baseball season. The Bees have made a move. And we'll do just a bunch of different local storylines with my guy TP coming up on a Monday. So Josh Furlong, Tom Haberstroh, Belle Frazier, Tony Parks, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and that guy, Porter Larson, producing, booking the show on a Monday.
What up?
You know, you and I never played for a paycheck. You and I never played for anything anybody cared about. But you don't have to be an ex-pro to remember a loss or a shot you missed or a catch you dropped when you were playing competitively that you still think about to this day. And look, Cooper Flagg is going to go on to be a great pro. I'm all in on him. There are very few holes in his game. That's the type of loss that if you're Con Knipple, if you're Cooper Flagg, if you're John Shire, if you're the Duke Blue Devils, that one doesn't escape you, man. That was a epic folding of the tents.
No, that's one that when you drop that kind of lead over that amount of time, my favorite thing in sports to watch. I'll be entirely honest with you. Tracy McGrady with the 13 points in however many seconds. You just don't really see it very often. I'm a Knicks fan, so you go back to Reggie Miller, right, who had the inbound steal, the 3-point.
You're going to do that to me on a Monday?
I'm sorry.
God,
I'm sorry.
Dude, I was there for that. Thanks a lot, Anthony Mason. May rest in peace.
Friend of the program, Eric Mika, texted me during that game because when I was a freshman, he was a freshman. I was sitting on the very end of the bench, but my hometown team won a state title over his high school team, scoring 8 points in 35 seconds, the final 35 seconds of the game. And that, to me, is like the only relation. Luckily, we were on the good side of that. We were on the elation of the night that time. But, man, it's gotta sting, especially when you make a few mistakes, right? When a player comes down and like the McGrady situation, just makes crazy shot after crazy shot, that's one thing. When you have a technical, when you have an over-the-back foul, when you have a kind of self-imposed errors, man, it's got to sting. And yeah, Duke is out of it. It was a crazy one to watch.
I do get the feeling that the Duke college basketball program is the Cowboys, the Lakers, the Yankees. I think a lot of people very much enjoyed that collapse.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Duke, I think
for
people,
sure.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of conversation about what this could mean for Cooper Flagg, but let's get into it as college basketball will crown its national champ tonight. Josh Furlong is our first guest right out of the gates. But before we get to Josh, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it is time now on a Monday for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Springtime is here. You can feel the weather warming up outside. Baseball season is underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. You can take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700. At checkout, when you play that first $5 bet, they're just going to hook you up with $50. You don't even have to win that $5 bet. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700. Upon checkout, you're going to get $50, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks. Run your game all season long. All right, so we've got Houston. We've got Florida tonight for all the marbles. Vegas believes this is going to be a very, very close game. The game opened up as Florida as a minor favorite, -1. And it has now moved to Florida -1.5, according to BetMGM. The over-under is 141.5. So Florida, just a skosh of a favorite tonight. Should be a really, really good game. This is only the 5th time in college basketball tournament history that the two teams playing for a national championship are both #1 seeds and both won their conference tournaments. The other 4 times this took place, the game was decided by single digits. All of those 4 games were very, very close. I'm not expecting any type of a blowout. Florida is looking to win their first national championship since the second national championship Billy Donovan won back in 2007 with really one of the most underrated college basketball teams in the history of the sport with Al Horford and Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer, really good teams under Billy Donovan. Of course, he is now with the Chicago Bulls. He's parlayed his college success into a lot of money in the pros. So Florida, if they win tonight, it'll be their 3rd national championship since the year 2000. That's tied for the 2nd most behind the UConn Huskies. And they're led by this Walter Clayton Jr. kid who is stone cold. I mean, talk about ice water in his veins. Does nothing but hit big shots. He is by far their best player. They've got a lot of good bigs, and both these two teams tonight really, really rebound well, specifically on the offensive end. So that's something to watch out for as Florida was able to beat the #1 overall seed, the Auburn Tigers, who went away from Johnny Broome in the second half. Johnny had 15 points total, but he had 12 points with 18 minutes left in the game. He only had 3 points in the final 18 minutes, and they just started chucking up threes, and they started panicking a little bit, and Florida just kind of, held steady and they rode Walter Clayton Jr. and his ability to just make big shot after big shot after big shot off the catch, off the bounce, going right, going left. A lot of high pick and roll ball screen action to get him loose. A lot of dribble handoffs because they have a lot of bigs that are really, really skilled. So Todd Golden's 39 years old. You guys might remember him from the West Coast Conference days. He coached San Francisco. If Todd wins tonight, if Florida wins tonight, Todd will be the second youngest head coach in college basketball history to win a national championship at the age of 39. The only coach that younger, that if he wins, actually the only coach that is younger on record to win a national championship was Jim Valvano, who's 37 years old, with Big T Thurl Bailey and the NC State Wolfpack back in the day. On the other side, Kelvin Sampson at the age of 69, if he wins tonight, if Houston wins tonight, he will be the oldest coach in the history of the sport to win his first national championship. So, of course, we are now a Big 12 footprint, once upon a time a Pac-12 footprint. And so I've watched Houston play all year. And there are times, and of course, oftentimes, if you're a radio host in Salt Lake City, you're going to approach this through the paradigm of what it looked like when the local teams played against this team. And watching Houston play both Utah and BYU this year, I felt bad for the Utes and the Cougars when they played the Houston Cougars. It didn't look like a fair fight. When Utah went to when Utah went to Houston, they lost 70-36, and it honestly wasn't that close. That game was over within 5 minutes. I can remember watching the game and the announcer referencing a stat where at one point I think the Utes had 8 turnovers and 3 baskets. Houston is big. They're physical. It's a veteran group. We'll get to this in a minute. I think this is one of the reasons why they're able to beat that young Duke team. A bunch of big, strong adults, a bunch of grown-ups in the room, and veteran players that have played a lot of college basketball. But in the 2 games they played against BYU, it wasn't any better. I mean, they smoked BYU 86-55. And then in the Big 12 tournament, it was 74-54. And BYU was good this year. I mean, that's the scary part. Houston and BYU, it looked like JV versus varsity, and BYU was a Sweet 16 team. That's how physical, that's how imposing, intense, and quite frankly, prescient Houston seems to be on defense, which is why watching them hang in there and then ultimately capitalize on the mistakes of this youthful Duke Blue Devil team really wasn't much of a surprise if you've been watching Houston all year. What was a surprise is the absolute epic meltdown by the Duke Blue Devils on Saturday night, and there's no other way to put that. Outscored 9-0 over the final 35 seconds of the game. The Zion James kid, who's a good player for John Shire, like at what point are you going to try to let somebody else inbound the basketball? Like let Con Knippel try it. Con's a physical, strong kid who doesn't seem to be afraid of the moment. And poor Zion, those 2 turnovers down the stretch that ultimately cost him the game, he just looked rattled. Now, one thing, and we'll catch a break here in a moment, but one thing I want to push back on is this conversation that's become 2-tiered since Saturday night. And number one, is this an indictment on Cooper Flagg? No, it's not at all. Cooper had their only bucket of the final, I think, 9.5 minutes, that corner 3. The over-the-back foul that they called on Cooper Flagg was an atrocious call. And yes, was he part of the group that melted down? Of course. And as I said earlier when I was talking with Porter, I don't care if you ever played sports, it doesn't matter. Like even if you never played anything that really mattered, chances are you remember a game that maybe you missed a shot, you made a turnover, you lost when you shouldn't have. This loss for Duke is not going away anytime soon, and honestly, probably ever. Like if you're Zion James, you're going to remember those turnovers. If you're Cooper Flagg, do you want this to be your last game in college? And, of course, the conversation has turned into, does this motivate Cooper Flagg to come back to Duke? Now, the side of the argument that makes sense is that Cooper is a young 18-year-old, okay? So that's one of the things that came into play here. L.J. Cryer, Juwan Roberts, these guys are in their mid-20s. These are 23-year-old players that have been playing for a long, long time. They are 5, sometimes almost 6 years older than Cooper, who reclassified and should be a senior in high school. Cooper Flagg should be getting ready for prom. Or did prom already happen? I don't know. Cooper Flagg should be getting ready for graduation from high school. Reclassifies, goes to Duke as a freshman. And the reason I bring up his age, okay, juxtapose this to the Richie Saunders conversation. Does Richie Saunders come back to play for BYU, right? So over the next few weeks, Richie is going to go through the pre-draft process where he and his reps, his family, his agent, or whoever will talk to NBA teams, and they'll ask, okay, what are your thoughts on our guy? Do you think he could be drafted? Are you interested in drafting him? I don't think he's a first rounder. Okay, but is he a second rounder? And is he the type of second round pick that you like enough that if he falls to you, you're going to give him a 3 or a 4 year deal? Doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen with second rounders. And if Richie gets the feedback that he can start his NBA career now, I very much believe he has no choice but to go do that because he's 23 and he's coming up on 24. So the reports are BYU wants Richie back and they're willing to pay him 7 figures. And that's great. Okay, so if Richie goes through the draft process and he doesn't get positive feedback, go make a couple $1,000,000 and play basketball for Kevin Young and go try to win the Big 12. No issue with that. But if he has a chance to start his NBA clock, he's got to go do it now because of the age of 23. Because what you want to do as an NBA player is prove throughout your rookie contract that you have earned it to be able to be paid even more as a second contract guy, third contract guy. That's when the generational wealth starts spilling in, okay? So 2 different time frames. Richie Saunders, 23. If you have feedback that says you can play NBA basketball, I think you got to go do that. Cooper Flagg, young 18-year-old, if he wants to wait another year, because talk about NIL. I don't know what Duke's NIL situation is, but if Richie Saunders is a $2.5, $3 million a year guy, what is Cooper? And if you're Duke, are you willing to put together a package that's like $10 million next year to bring him back for one more season? Because he's good enough. And, you know, the other thing to keep in mind here is the Maluach kid and then Con Knipple, all 3 of those players are thought to be lottery picks. Do those 3 get together and decide, okay, Duke, this is what's going to cost you to have all 3 of us for one more year, and we're willing to come back for one more year because we're all teenagers, as opposed to getting the clock rolling on my NBA contract to get the second year, you know, the second contract coming my way as a max player if you're Cooper Flagg. Well, year one as a rookie, even if you're the number 1 pick, Duke could probably pay Cooper more money for 1 year to bring him back than he could get his first year as a pro. Now, I find all of this much ado about nothing because I just believe that if you're a generational player like Cooper is and you've stayed healthy, I think you've got to go get it started. That's my opinion. And maybe I'm being selfish here because the last thing I would want in the second week of May is to be sitting there when it's lottery night and Lady Luck finally shines on the Jazz and they grab number 1 overall. And then Cooper announces that he's going back to Duke. Can you imagine that? Would that be the most Utah Jazz thing of all time? So, yeah, just throwing that out there. But Houston and Florida tonight for all the marbles just before 7 o'clock on CBS as March Madness will conclude. Of course, obviously, it's April. We'll catch a break. But coming up on the other side, Utah football with a spring practice on Saturday, Utah basketball with a commit that we talked about last week, and the Red Rocks going to the national tournament for the 49th straight year. Josh Furlong bats leadoff on a Monday afternoon. Good to have you with us. Don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. College basketball will crown its national champ tonight on the men's side after the UConn women got it done over the weekend. Gino Auriemma, 12-1 in national championship games. That is a mind-blowing stat. Houston, Florida tonight. 6:50 Mountain Time on CBS. Florida, as of now, is a 1.5-point favorite. Representing the SEC, of course, Houston out of the Big 12. And Josh Furlong will join us right out of the gates. And Josh, if you've been watching Big 12 basketball all year long, you're probably not too surprised to see the Houston Cougars playing for the national championship. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I think this is a team that they play together. They've been consistent. They've been together for a long time, and so they're a tough team to beat. I mean, when I put in my bracket, they're the team that I actually put to win it all. So it wasn't a surprise to me by any means. Florida's obviously a good team. They've got some length. So I'm really fascinated to kind of see how this works, especially with offense and kind of the defensive prowess that Houston brings. So it should be a really fun matchup. I mean, the fact that they could even beat Duke was pretty remarkable, but love it. So you can't ask for anything more in a championship game.
Since you brought it up, one more thing here, then we'll get on to the Utah content portion of the interview. Look, man, I don't care what level you ever played. If you ever played, competitive sports of any kind on any level, the chances are there's a missed shot that you think about while you're trying to go to bed. There's a game that your team lost that you think about, that you wonder, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, what have you. I don't care what Cooper Flagg goes on to do the rest of the way, and I think I'm all in on him. I think he's awesome. Con Knipple, the Malawatch kid, that's a team full of stars. I don't know, Josh, that you ever quite forget a loss that Duke, a loss the likes of which Duke suffered at the hands of Houston. That was one of the most epic collapses I think I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember looking at the clock thinking, there's no way Houston really getting into this. And just little by little, it just felt like Duke was kind of, the whole definition of F around and find out type situation, right? I don't know if you could put that on the radio, but I think this was just, a situation where Duke just kind of felt comfortable, and obviously they relied a ton on Cooper Flagg, but he was the only one that was able to generate anything. And so when he didn't, they really had nowhere to turn, and suddenly you've got a Houston team that got momentum, and it all changed. But I think if you were to tell me that was going to happen, especially with a minute left of the game, I still don't know that I'd believe you, especially the way that it did. So definitely one for the ages, but yeah, you have to feel for Duke. I mean, that's going to be one that sticks with you for a very long time, and I don't know that you can shake it, especially with how that went down.
And I don't know what this means for where Cooper Flagg's head is at. Of course, the conversation over the past 48 hours or so have been does this motivate him to come back to school? And, I kind of roll my eyes at that, but at the same time, he turned 18 3.5 months ago or so. He is a young 18-year-old. And Josh, I cannot imagine what the reaction would be if we're sitting here watching the draft lottery. I think it's May 12th, if I remember correctly. And Lady Luck shines on the Jazz. They grab number 1 overall, and then Cooper Flagg announces he's going back to Duke. Can you imagine the reaction in this city?
It would be the most perfect thing that would happen to Utah. The one time they finally get the number 1 seed, and Cooper Flagg, the guy that they've been tanking for, decides to stay in college. I mean, I think, yeah. I don't even want to know what that would do to people. I mean, I think people were okay with the Jazz tanking and within reason, but then to not get somebody like Cooper Flagg would just be devastating, a generational talent. But that's the age of NIL now, man. I mean, I think, he can obviously go get paid a fairly great wage at Duke. And if he really wants to get that national championship, good for him. But, he'd be crazy not to, in my opinion. I mean, I think, all it takes is an injury to derail things. At least if you're in the NBA, you've derailed it and you're in the NBA. So, it would be crazier things would happen, but it would be the Jazz luck to have that happen where they get the number 1 pick and then everything goes to crap.
Well, let's hope that does not go down, but only time will tell, Josh. Let's move over to some Utah stuff, and let's start with a piece of news that appears to be very positive. I'm not going to be the radio host that claims that I was grinding on Fairleigh Dickinson tape last year, but Terrence Brown was their leading scorer. He's one of the top scorers in the country, and he is a rising junior, which means technically he has 3 years to play with the grad transfer stuff, and apparently the background is he knows Rafael Chilius, but Utah lands who, according to On3, is a 4-star transfer with a composite ranking of nearly 92 out of 100. So, again, I'm not overly familiar. I've just been reading about him and watching some highlights. He's a pretty impressive young 6'3" sophomore. What do you make of this piece of the puzzle that Alex Jensen and his staff were able to dial in?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about, Fairleigh Dickinson or anything other than their tournament run a few years back. But, this is a guy that, when you look at what Utah needs to be able to compete, or at least what they haven't had for the last few years, it's been guard play and it's been outside shooters or guys that can be able to create their own shot. And Utah seemingly found that with Terrence Brown. He's a guy that, averages about 20.6 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 3.2 assists. So he seems like he can do it all and is kind of a contributor of the offense more than what Utah's had. Now, obviously, how he's able to translate to the Big 12 game will be the biggest thing. But, when you're going in there and the first guy that you pull out of the portal, outside of getting Keanu Dawes to withdraw from the portal, this becomes a huge get for Utah. Just, being able to get a guy that they feel confident in, that can score, that can do a lot of things at guard play. He's a combo guard, so, I'm curious to see how much he'll have the ball in his hands or if he'll be the guy that they set up. But, you still need great guard play, and especially in the Big 12, you need that. So I think this is Alex Jensen working early to be able to work on those connections with Chilius, but also it's being able to address the needs that they've seen in the past and kind of his mindset of he wants this team to be able to run fast, have some tempo, and be able to do that. And the best way to do that is with guard play.
All right, so that's piece number 2 of the puzzle, and we're still learning about some of these other players and whether or not, Alex and his staff are trying to get any of them back. So let's move over to some of those pieces of news, and I've got your Twitter feed pulled up. So according to an account you retweeted, a Running Hoops podcast, they're reporting that Josh Eilert will not be returning next season. I don't know that this is surprising, although you did join us pretty quickly after the news came down that Craig was out and the rumors were swirling that Alex was going to be in. And you made a really interesting case that essentially Josh, with 2 decades of Big 12 experience, might be a guy that Alex looks at. Josh rolled in a studio a few weeks ago. We spent some time together. Seems like a great guy. Moved his family out here, I believe 3 children. And this business oftentimes is unkind to family dynamics. So what are your thoughts on the news that, and I have no idea if AJ even talked to him, but Josh Eilert will not be returning in any role next year for Utah basketball?
Yeah, I know Alex Jensen he was in town last week, meeting with the players, meeting with the staff, and trying to get his lay of the land on kind of what he could do. Ever since Chilius was the first one that he hired, there's been a lot more emphasis being placed on wanting to get his NBA guys that he feels like he has a great connection with, guys that have kind of that NBA pedigree. And for whatever reason, Josh Eilert didn't kind of have him out there. I think when, I made the case that if you're going to bring Josh Eilert on, it's mostly because of your ability to be able to scout the Big 12 and being able to understand what goes on there. But since those conversations that we had, I've kind of heard that there was a little bit more waffling there, especially with the entire staff. There's still questions on guys like a David Evans or a Lo Leaf. Obviously, they provide connections to whether it be the AAU circuit or in David Evans's case, where, obviously he's coached in the state of Utah. He's got a lot of connections there. He also has a great international recruiting base that he can pull from. And so there's still questions remaining about them. I think the longer this goes on, the less likely it becomes. But I wouldn't be surprised if David Evans is the guy that they hold on to, if they hold on to somebody. I think just from the Utah standpoint alone, that gives you, the connections inside the state, which, look, Utah has some good recruiting, but you also need some guys that can go out there and recruit from other areas, right? And I think with his ability to recruit outside of the country, the international circuits, I think that gives you a leg up. But look, I think there's so many different guys that you can go to. I don't know that it's a huge miss if you don't take any of these guys, but I think, these are guys that are going to have to fall in line with the way Alex Jensen wants to do it. And, for whatever reason, it seems like Josh Eilert just wasn't the fit there, whether it was his own choice or whether it was Alex's. I haven't heard anything but that direction. But, you wish him best. He's a good guy. He's kind of a no-nonsense guy, but also kind of stays out of the limelight. Just happy to kind of work hard and get a team going forward. So tough to see that, but I think Utah or Alex Jensen specifically has an idea of where he wants to go.
While we're in the space of talking about Alex's staff, right out of the gates, Coach Chilius, and then about a week later, Wes hired as the GM, and it's been quiet since then. Any insight? And Alex hopped on Sean's show earlier today and talked about his desire to have a staff that's maybe a little bit smaller than what we've seen in college basketball as of late, which to me is great. I mean, there's like 10 coaches on all these teams now. And so we'll see how this thing kind of takes shape. But do you have any information on the progress or maybe lack thereof in filling out the staff?
Yeah, I know he's definitely been working hard to be able to kind of get his guys. I know that there's an NBA guy that he's still trying to work on. And whether that comes down to the NBA season or some other factors, I'm not entirely sure. But I know he wants, at least one more NBA guy. And then outside of that, he's, trying to find some connections to the state of Utah, trying to find a good connection that'll allow you to be able to, whether that be recruiting or just being able to kind of have that guy that's been in the state, in people's homes or whatever that may be, that is kind of recognizable that way. So, he's definitely being intentional with this. This isn't something where he's trying to hire a staff immediately so that they can get going for this next year. He's definitely looking long term, right? I think he's not trying to just kind of put a Band-Aid over something real quick as he's dealing with, what he's at in Dallas. He's definitely trying to be intentional. I mean, he said as much in his intro press conference, right? Like, he said that he was going to take his time. He was going to do it. And you're definitely seeing that. I think, he wants people that buy into his process. He wants people that are going to maximize kind of his potential, especially if he is going to take that small staff. And I've heard the same thing. I don't think he's going to blow up this staff and make it some massive thing. You still need your directors of operations. You still need, more assistant coaches. You need some other things that way. But I think he really attacked it hard and showed kind of his hand by getting Rafael Chilius as an assistant coach and then getting Wes Wilcox as a general manager. He showed kind of the direction he was going, where this is going to be my focus. I'm going to focus on the recruits. I'm going to go from the NBA style and go from there. So I don't know that he feels the need to necessarily get something immediately, especially because he's got those proven guys that are able to kind of be in the system already.
We did get some news over the weekend. Ezra Sarr has entered the transfer portal. Of course, Ezra had a lot of bright moments playing for Craig this year, including the BYU game here in Salt Lake. And, I know he has children elsewhere in the country, I think in the Midwest, so maybe he's looking to get closer to home. He did feel like one of the candidates, along with Keanu Dawes, who will be back playing for the Utes, that maybe Alex would take a long, hard look at, and maybe they still are. But can you shed some light on this information and whether or not Ezra is still considering maybe staying here in Salt Lake?
Yeah, Utah's definitely still in conversations with Ezra. I think they want him, but I think they're going to want him at the right price. I know we have to say that now in college basketball and college football, which is crazy, but I think, based on his skill set, obviously he had tremendous abilities and tremendous upside, but there's still limiting aspects of his game where he kind of loses the ball in the post. He's not able to, really shoot outside of maybe 10, 15 feet. Great guy around the rim, but outside of that, his game is pretty limited. So I think, they want him. They want him to be able to be a complementary player to probably Keanu Dawes, especially since Keanu has shown that he can be a bit more of a well-rounded player. Maybe his upside is a little bit better. And so if they can get him for the right price, 100% they're going to take him. But I think at this point, if the market's not there, Keanu is the guy that they're going to build around. They've clearly made an emphasis that, they wanted to be able to have him as kind of their focal point of this team. And so if you can build around Keanu and you can have other players that can kind of work in that system, that helps. And whether Ezra fits in that or not, I would be surprised if he comes back just based on everything and kind of how this roster, even though it's not a large roster, but how this roster is taking shape, I would be surprised if those are two players that really kind of complement each other in the game. They have kind of a similar skill set outside of Keanu having a better shooting outside of the post. So I know fans really got to love Ezra. I think he was a great guy that spoke well. He was a great guy that fought for the team. But I think at this point, unless the price isn't right, I think it's time to move on from Ezra.
Instead of going down the list, one more basketball question, then we'll move on. Do you think there are any other players currently, quote, on the roster in the transfer portal that Alex is talking to, trying to get back, whether it's Jake Wallin or any of the other players?
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, it's Jake Wallin. He's the guy that I think they really want to see come back. The strides that he made year over year from his first year to last year kind of shows where he can go. Right? They're excited about that. I know other in-state schools are really pushing hard for him, and so this isn't going to be an easy thing. At the end of the day, Jake, as all these players do, he has to do what's best for him. But I know that they're really interested in him and want to see him develop. But I know a school up north that is absolutely pushing hard for him. So whether that comes down to money or kind of a better fit, whatever that may be, he's going to be a hot commodity, at least in this state alone. And, whether Utah gets him or not, it can be a loss, but I don't think it has to be. They needed more out of him from an outside shooting perspective. And so if he does come back, I think that's where you'd see them definitely grow and try to push his game because he's got a tremendous upside as well. I mean, he gets into that post. He's able to rebound at a high rate, but they do need more shooting from the outside to make his game translate a little bit better with what Alex wants to do.
All right, over to the football side of things, as there was a scrimmage on Saturday where media was allowed to watch, which doesn't happen often. There was once upon a time where it happened all the time, but of course things change and people get weird about access, as we've talked about. So, any main takeaways from that scrimmage? Anything you fans should know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway from this scrimmage alone is that Devin Dampier's the guy, right? I mean, and not that there was any questions, but I think there's a noticeable enough difference between Devin Dampier and the rest of the quarterbacks. And right now, that's Isaac Wilson and Bird Ficklin. Those two have been the guys that have been backing him up. But I really think a guy like Bird Ficklin, who he needs to put on a ton of weight, just size. He's a smaller bodied guy right now, but he's got one of the best balls that any of the quarterbacks have. He's starting to make tremendous strides, and so you're starting to see Bird kind of pushing Isaac a little bit. Isaac obviously needs to rebuild that confidence that he had after kind of just tanking out last year based on having the whole offense on his shoulders and it just not going well. But by and large, I mean, I think this team, it's making the right progressions that it needs to make, right? I think one of the questions about this offense specifically is that there wasn't really going to be a huge passing game. And, there is an emphasis more in the run game as over the last few years, they've wanted to push more of the passing. But I think Utah's utilizing this in a very effective way where they're being diverse in how they run the ball. And as such, they're being able to use that to be able to open up a lot of these receivers. And, right now there's not like a standout guy in that wide receiver room that says, okay, it has to be that guy. You have to throw it to him. It has to be, whoever it is, whether it's Dorian Singer or whomever it was. Now it's much more of a spreaded out distribution, and there's a lot of guys factoring into that. And included in that is the tight ends. Landon King and Dallin Bentley, who had a great scrimmage, they're factored in there. But I think the way that Utah is setting this up, where they're going to put the run emphasis there, while they're still kind of making it a multi-dimensional situation, whether that be with Devin Dampier, who can pass and run, whether that's with Nate Johnson, or even Hunter Andrews. Hunter Andrews has got some tremendous speed, and we're starting to see kind of his potential. This offense can be really fascinating, and I'm really curious to see how this continues to develop over the offseason because I think they could be a very potent offense if these things continue.
I was going to ask you about the wide receivers, but you kind of broke it down there pretty well. So before I set you loose, there will be another transfer portal window opening for Kyle and his staff with the ability to add to the group. Any thoughts? Maybe it is wide receiver, but any other holes on either side of the ball that you think they're going to look to add to before we actually play football come fall?
Yeah, wide receiver, they're going to try to find a guy that can be kind of that wide receiver one, right? Whether that's there or whether they can get it, it remains to be seen. But that's going to be a big focus. And then defensive line, you're going to get those defensive tackles where you need some more depth there. They've got some good frontline talent, but the guys behind them are either young or they've been in the system a long time and have been injury prone. And so you just need more guys, more bodies there. Defensive end, you're going to be okay, but defensive tackles, you're going to need a little bit more. And then outside of that, I mean, it's just kind of best player available. I mean, corner would be nice to be able to add another guy in that to be able to have more depth. But I think your big focus going into the transfer portal is going to be at wide receiver and defensive tackle.
All right, Josh. By the way, you were on television during one of the pressers. How long has it been since you shaved? That beard is getting weird, man.
It's been 2020 is when I started growing it, so I'll trim it up from time to time. But I'm keeping the beard as long as I can. Maybe it's motivation to get me to get skinny. Then I can maybe shave again.
All right, man. Well, do your thing. It looks good. As long as the wife likes it, you're good to go, yeah?
Yes, right. She actually didn't like it before, and now she doesn't want me to see it shaved. So it's a good thing, I guess.
All right, brother. Thanks for the time. Have a good week, all right?
Thanks, you too.
All right, Josh Furlong covers the University of Utah for our friends at KSL. Stops by today courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores. If you've been out and about over the past 24, 48 hours, you are feeling spring conditions. Spring has arrived. It took a little while. March was cold. Beginning of April was chilly. But time now to start thinking about your lawn and how to take care of it. Any drive to the basket begins with a first step. On the court, that's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and their lawn food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. All right, we got 1 hour down. We got 3 hours to go. We'll do a little jazz and some NBA with Tom Haberstroh. We've got a little Utah Hockey Club with Belle Frazier and a bit of everything with our guy Tony Parks, who rolls by live in studio, coming up a little bit later. But we'll catch a quick break, and we roll on with Tom Haberstroh on the other side. Right here on The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. You in a Tom Petty mood today on a Monday afternoon? What's going on? What's going on with you in there? What's the deal?
I guess kind of not officially, but the first two songs gone with a little Tom Petty. So maybe we'll keep it going. Maybe not. Up to you.
You can roll with it, but you are aware this is a family-friendly program, right?
Yeah.
And your first Tom Petty bump, song's about weed, dude. Just be better.
Mary Jane's a sweet girlfriend of his.
It's weed. Just say no, kids. I'm the one that has to clean up for your poor musical choices by reminding the masses that we're here to take care of families and children.
Is that our demographic?
Yeah, just say no. That's all I'm saying.
I think that sheet said like 35-70 male.
Okay, fair enough. Our next guest passes on grass, like Greg Fokker from Meet the Parents. Tom Haberstroh, Monday afternoon. Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? I like that you make that presumption about me.
Well, if you'd like to discuss your weed smoking habits on air, Tom, I'm happy to make the space.
No, this is a family program.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. I think. Yep.
Yeah, no, it is.
What an intro.
Now, this is still live radio. This is not a podcast. We have to behave ourselves in a way that people like you and Zach Harper do not.
Yeah, we have to remind ourselves that we're professionals because everything in our lives just screams unprofessional. So thank you for the reminder. Yes.
No, you guys are very professional, but you can drop a bomb here or there, or you can discuss things on podcast that you can't discuss on radio, right? I mean, that's kind of the deal.
You tell me, Spence. You're the one with the radio show.
Well, when I go on podcasts, it seems like there's a little bit more freedom to use certain terms. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? I'm just surprised you went with weed. That kind of feels like another, maybe like a graduate level program compared to just marijuana. Feels like it's a little inside baseball. Nice job.
My bad. Bubonic product. I've got a bunch of terms that we could use if you want to, but we can move on. Speaking of Zach Harper, he does not like your Kevin Garnett as Cooper Flag comp, just so you know.
Well, Zach is way smarter than me on all things basketball, so I would trust him on all those things. But you know what? He's also a Minnesota Timberwolf lifer, so he probably understands that comparing anyone to KG is like any Bulls fan hearing people compare anybody to Michael Jordan.
Okay, fair enough. And it's funny because of all the comps that I've heard, the Garnett one actually tracks when you watch the way that Cooper can guard and how well he moves. I mean, look, I think, whether it's Kawhi or whether it's Garnett, whenever you compare an 18-year-old to Hall of Famers, you're going to get pushback. Is there anything about the way Duke went out that could potentially affect the way people view Cooper at all?
I don't think so, considering he's the youngest guy on the court by a wide margin. He was going against a lot older guys, and as much as I want to pin it all on him, I thought that the over-the-back call that they whistled on him was very borderline. Didn't feel like the right call at that stage. The physicality in the game feels like that was something you might call in the beginning of the game to set the tone for the rest of the game. But the way that Houston was being physical with Duke, I was flabbergasted at that call. And look, he missed the shot there at the end, but he's made those shots time and time again. So I don't think that was a bad shot. What really stands out to me is Malawach having 0 rebounds in over 20 minutes of action, and that Duke had no rebounds after the 4-minute mark. That's insane. And some of that falls on Cooper Flag for sure. But it's one game. It's a huge game. And if the Duke Blue Devils went out in like the second round or then the Sweet 16, I would have a lot harsher words to say for Cooper Flag and John Shire and Duke. That was an epic collapse, but I wouldn't put this all on Cooper Flag, and it wouldn't change my evaluation of him.
That's the type of loss, Tom. I don't care if it's, Pete Van Sicklen and Ernie Varina and Staples in 1995. It doesn't matter what level you played. It doesn't matter how long it's been. A loss like that, I don't think ever fully leaves you. Like if you're John Shai, if you're Con Knipple, the Malawatch kid, or Cooper, like all of them are probably going to go on. All three of those kids are lottery picks. They're going to make millions of dollars and play basketball for years. But the way they went out, I'm not sure a loss like that ever fully leaves you.
It's traumatic. It's the best way to describe it as a basketball player. You're always going to think about it. Like if you're up 6 with 36 seconds left for the rest of your career, you're going to be thinking about San Antonio. You're going to be thinking about what happened against the Houston Cougars. And that's the fact of the matter for any athlete who has ever suffered a loss like that. You are always going to have it in the back of your mind. Now, time heals all wounds. So eventually it'll fade from memory and it won't be so harsh and searing of a loss over time. But I can't imagine that anyone who suffers that kind of loss, I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you watch The White Lotus.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like
obsessed.
I mean, the text that I got from all my buddies in North Carolina, it was the Duke shirt with the dad Ratcliffe with the gun to his head.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there being like, that feels like we're in a simulation now, because how is White Lotus picking the one team that has the most depressing, I can't believe that just happened loss, the most brutal loss of the tournament. And it happened right before the finale of White Lotus, which feels like we are part of this simulation where it's all connected in some way, just like in the White Lotus season finale. No spoilers, but that was one of the big themes, was how we're all connected in some way. And that finish by the Blue Devils did feel like this was preordained somehow, that it would promote the White Lotus season finale that was last night. And I'm still gathering my thoughts on both the Duke loss on Saturday night and White Lotus on Sunday night, but both of them felt like big events in the year 2025.
And I was wrong about both, just to be clear. I did not see either coming. But, yeah, we'll leave the spoiler alerts for White Lotus off air today. I do have one more question, Tom, and I don't think there's anything here. Let me be clear. My personal opinion and my personal belief is that Cooper is leaving. He's going. He's a generational player that's going to be the number one pick, and he is healthy. So you got to go do that, okay? Now, the other side of it is he is a young 18-year-old. He turned 18, I think, 3.5 months ago. And a taste in your mouth like that to leave college may be something that motivates him to come back because of his age. And 5 years ago, this is a conversation we would not even be having. However, I could actually foresee, whether it's, Cooper, Con, Knipple, the Malawatch kid, all three of them saying, look, we know we're lottery picks, but we're all young, we're teenagers, and if Duke wants to step up with an NIL package that will pay them more for 1 year than what all of them could make as rookies in the NBA, to run it back and try to get John Shire's first national championship, I guess I would say stranger things have happened based off the current landscape. And I'm sitting here shaking my head because I'm now imagining a scenario on May 12th when the NBA lottery is held and the Jazz get number one. And then the next day, Cooper Flagg announces that he's going back to Duke. I do not know what it would be like around here. But what do you
Pain.
Yeah, oh man. I don't even want to think about it. But any shot in hell that actually goes down?
I think it's even less likely now than it was before that collapse, because I think there's no upside in coming back. There's the only way that you have redemption or that you win that equation is if you win the national championship, right? Like anything short of that is just making more salt in the wound. And I think when you lose in the Final Four in epic fashion like that, there's only one way to forget that whole thing and to make those wrongs right, is to win it all the next year. And just with a one and done style format of the NCAA tournament, I don't see the upside there being worth it. Because in the NBA, you can make the argument that like a team that much better than everybody else in a 7-game series, you have a better shot of asserting your dominance in a 7-game series, not in a one and done where something fluky can happen and everything collapses like a house of cards. So I think before that Cooper Flag championship or the Final Four loss, I would say there's better odds if they win it all that he would come back and do it again like Joakim Noah and Al Horford did than if they had this cataclysmic loss in the Final Four. And I would just say there's also this dynamic of DeBonsa next year where if Cooper Flag comes back and Knipple comes back and Maluach comes back, there's an excellent draft class coming through next year that they're going to have to be competing for draft picks next year. And not only competing for draft picks or draft slot, you're competing for millions of dollars in first-year salary, or at least rookie-scale salaries. So I think the risk for Cooper Flag actually got even higher in deciding to come back. So I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think it's even more of a long shot that turns into even more of a long shot if they lose that game in horrific fashion. I think I don't think it's going to happen. But you know what? Stranger things have happened, like blowing what was it? A 9-point lead with a minute 20 left. What was the largest gap there? Probability. I think it was that 6-point lead with 32 seconds left.
Yeah, they were up 9 with a minute. They were outscored 9-0 over the final 35 seconds. And, strictly from a basketball standpoint, I felt really bad that John Shire I felt bad for the players that John Shire didn't dial up a different inbounds play. They tried the same inbounds play over and over and over. They were trapped in the corner. They overcame a Houston player reaching over the end line to try to swat the ball out of, I think it was Knipple's hands, where Duke got a tech in possession. Like, the Zion James kid, who's a really good player, just looked panicked trying to inbound the basketball. I honestly, Tom, I have tremendous respect for Duke basketball and John Shire. I thought their coach let them down the stretch.
Yeah, and then you forget about the Knipple kick out of bounds that went the wrong way.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it was a crazy finish to that game. And you're still watching like, wow, like how did that happen? And there have been times where, what was it? I seem to remember Maryland coming back against Duke down 10. Or was it the other way around? Where it was like Wojo, and like I'll never forget, if you're up by 10 with a minute left, ever since that loss happened, I've never forgotten it. Like, I've always in my head, no matter who it is, who's playing, no 10-point lead with a minute left is safe. Like, I want it to be 15. And this is the same sort of game. Well, I will, for a long time, look at a 6-point lead differently with 33 seconds left, NBA or college basketball, because that just happened in one of the biggest stages. So, look, I think it's been a rough collapse for the Duke program. When you talk about losing to NC State a year ago and then losing to UNC and then losing here, it's been a really tough road for Duke, but I am not crying for them. As a Wake Forest alum based here in Charlotte, who grew up a Tar Heel fan, I'm not shedding any tears, but like you, I had Duke winning it all, and maybe that was an emotional hedge for me.
The game you're talking about, I remember it now. It's the Miracle Minute. That was Jay Williams. That was that Maryland team with Juan Dixon and Steve Blake. Boozer was on Duke, as was Mike Dunleavy and Chris Duhon. Duke came back from 10 points down with a minute 20 left to play. That was 2001. I do remember that game now that you mention it.
Yes, that's the game where it's kind of scarring, where once that happens and you've seen it with your eyes, you're just like, yeah, no 10-point lead with a minute left is safe. And, I think if this was a bunch of 18-year-olds going at it, like seniors in high school, and Cooper Flag had that kind of collapse, I'd probably put a little bit more weight. Like, why couldn't he have dominated more down the stretch? But because some of these guys are, fifth-year seniors and 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds in some cases, like, I'm not sweating it for Cooper Flag, but it does give me a lot of excitement, a lot of debate going into the draft that otherwise wouldn't have been there. If he had run the table, I feel like we would just be running out of things to say about Cooper Flag because he's that good. And now we can actually, chew a little bit of meat on that bone of, is there something that we're missing? Because I think it is healthy. A little bit of doubt or a little bit of criticism is healthy for a prospect where the bar isn't so high that he cannot physically, reach those expectations, because the only one that's ever done it, in my opinion, is LeBron James. And I mean, it's just hyping someone to that degree. We did it with Zion Williamson. We did it with Anthony Davis. Cooper Flagg, to me, feels like as big of an American prospect as we've had in decades. And Wemby doesn't count, because I don't think America really knew what we were talking about with Wemby, because he was French and because he hadn't played college hoops over here. But this feels like Cooper Flagg losing in the Final Four. It feels like it might be some healthy adversity for him. Maybe I'm just I'm rose-colored glasses here, but I think for Utah, I do not see Cooper Flagg returning to Duke for another year, even if, let's say, another team that he's not super enthused about. I think the odds of him returning actually decreased after that cataclysmic loss.
Tell me what, before you do some NBA, before I say you lose, a lot of conversation about this tournament specifically. I think there was one, maybe two overtime games. I think there was one game winner. There were no Cinderellas. Now all four number one seeds leads to high-quality basketball. I thought Saturday was awesome, and I'm excited for the game tonight. But what's the Tom Haberstroh take on the NCAA March Madness tournament of 2025?
I think it's better to have big-name programs in the Final Four than having a Cinderella run and then end in, like, the Elite Eight. Like, I think all things considered, this is going to be great for ratings. It was great for the national conversation. And while as much as I like a good Cinderella, a good St. Peter's, a good George Mason, when it comes to the Final Four, I feel like we all collectively understand that they don't really have a real chance of winning this whole thing. Whereas all four of these teams that were in the Final Four, you wouldn't be surprised if anyone made the distance. And that kind of intrigue and that kind of those stakes felt bigger with the Final Four being all the top seeds, basically. And I would say it's the same thing for the NBA. As much as we say and claim that we want parity, I think what fans really want secretly is Steph Curry going against LeBron James for the 18th time. I think people want that. They want rivalries. They want brand names, household names in the end. And there's a little hipster in everybody that wants, hey, wouldn't it be cool if it was Memphis versus Indiana in the NBA Finals this year? At the end of the day, I think Boston, LA, or Cleveland, LA in the finals, more people would care about that than if it was even OKC. I feel like people would want to say it would be great to see OKC up there. OKC, Cleveland, what a great NBA Finals that would be. But at the end of the day, that would draw half the audience of a Lakers Cleveland or a Lakers Boston series. And the same thing goes for college basketball. We want the blue bloods. We want the big name programs. We want the number one seeds there at the end. But I can understand the argument that the Cinderellas, the fact that we didn't get really any Cinderellas into the Sweet 16 or close to it, I can understand. I think the optimal thing is a couple Cinderellas early on, and then we see the big dogs down the stretch.
So Oklahoma City, in the midst of a historic run, they just went 19-1 over a 20-game stretch, but they have lost back-to-back games at full strength. You know, all their players played at Houston, and then they got trounced by the Lakers. And I will say, as a fan of this game, watching two players like LeBron and Luka and dialing in on them and watching them kind of figure it out is pretty fascinating with the way they think about the game. But any concern at all, as we only have a handful of games left, 4 or 5 for most teams, with where Oklahoma City finds themselves, or is just a couple L's is all?
I think it's 2 L's with incredibly hot shooting on the other side. Like, those are tough shots. The fact is that it took 2 surface of the sun shooting nights to beat OKC. And not to say that they aren't beatable, but if they weren't such outliers from downtown where they're combined against Houston and the Lakers, they shot over 50% from 3-point land, and that's the recipe. And that's the recipe for against the 96 Bulls or the 2017 Warriors. Like, you need to have an outrageously hot shooting night in order to topple the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you can sit here and say, like, they exploited a weakness, et cetera, but it's a make or miss league, and that means the same for OKC and the rest of the team, is that if the opponents, like the Lakers and the Houston Rockets, are going to shoot lights out against you, they're going to win. They're going to win every once in a while against the Thunder. But in a 7-game series, I don't see the Lakers hitting 22 threes on 55% shooting from downtown. And if they do that, then, yeah, they're going to win the series against OKC. But I just don't see that being sustainable.
Let me ask you about a couple of teams out this way that I don't really think we've discussed very much. And the Clippers went through this stretch where they lost 6 of 7, and then since then they're 14-3 in their last 17, with wins over the Pistons, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Grizzlies, a couple wins over the Knicks, and I could keep going. I mean, there's some wins over bad teams in there, but you know, every time Kawhi is healthy and every time he decides to be engaged, we're all reminded of like, oh yeah, that's who he is when he decides that basketball is important and he actually is healthy. Are you buying any of this? Are they a legitimate threat to do some sort of special thing come playoff time?
Man, I'm going to let you in on a little teaser here that if you subscribe to my newsletter, tomthefinder.com, you'll see it in there, but I'll give it to your listeners here. And just with the knowledge that I'm going to give you something, please go subscribe, tomthefinder.com, free or paid, doesn't matter. This stat blew me away when I was working on it over the weekend. I wanted to know when Luka and LeBron are on the floor, or when Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun are on the floor, or Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are on the floor, Halliburton and Siakam. Basically, when each team has their star players on the floor, what is the point differential? How much do they outscore opponents with their stars on the floor? And the fact of the matter is, the Clippers have the best on-court net rating for their stars on the floor, meaning when James Harden and Kawhi Leonard are on the floor for the Clippers, they're outscoring opponents by a whopping 13.2 points every 100 possessions. You look at any star collection in the NBA for all the title contenders, Cleveland, OKC, Boston, Lakers, Minnesota. You look at when the Cleveland Cavaliers have their 4 All-Stars on the floor, and I'm counting Jared Allen there too, Garland, Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, they're at plus 10. Kawhi and James Harden and Zubac's on the floor, Norm Powell on the floor, Derek Jones Jr. When Harden and Kawhi are on the floor, they're at plus 13. No one else is higher than that. And that really shows that when those two are healthy, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, they're going to compete at the highest levels. And I mean against OKC. I mean against the Lakers. I mean against anybody. And one thing that's interesting that kind of got obscured by the huge Lakers win yesterday is that LeBron James and Luka Doncic have the lowest star net rating among all the title contenders. They're barely above 0. Barely above 0. And that is interesting. I know that Luka Doncic just got acquired. He was working back from his injury. But most of the title contenders have their stars, when they're on the floor, they blow out opponents by double digits. And the Lakers are a huge outlier in this, that LeBron James and Luka Doncic are basically breaking even when they're on the floor together. And that, one game sample size of yesterday barely nudged them above the Mendoza or the break-even line. And that's really interesting. No one else is in the same territory as LeBron and Doncic on the floor. They've got to figure out a way to maximize those two guys. And last night was incredible, and Austin Reeves has been great. But it is interesting that the Lakers, there have been some blowouts that they've been enduring since that trade. This is a source of concern for the Lakers, and definitely a source of appreciation for what Kawhi Leonard, and he's healthy, and James Harden, and he's healthy, what they can do.
Yeah, whenever Kawhi is healthy for an extended period of time, I'm always just reminded of there was a moment in time in his career that we actually considered him maybe the best player in this league outside of LeBron. And I'm realizing this in real time, and I'll ask you about one more team before we set you loose. Like the Clippers, the Timberwolves went through a stretch. They went 2-6 over an 8-game period. They even lost to the Utah Jazz, which does not happen very much.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're also 14-3 in their last 17 with some good wins, including a win over the Nuggets. And I could keep going, 2 wins over Denver. So are you buying the recent surge from Minnesota? What are their chances to make some noise come playoff time, as that's right around the corner?
So for my title tiers that just came out this morning, I actually upgraded the Clippers to a 4-star tier. And the other team on that tier, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're elite on both ends of the floor. They're 10th on offense, adjusted for their opponent's schedule, and 5th defensively, adjusted for their opponent's strength. So this team is top 5 on defense, top 10 on offense, and with their health on their side, now that they're healthy, they're really deep and they're good. And Naz Reid, I think, is the better option next to Rudy Gobert in crunch time and in the postseason rather than Julius Randle. But that's a good problem to have. Like when you got 2 studs there, and I'm lower on Julius Randle than most people, but when you have the option to have a stretch 5 or a stretch 4 like Naz Reid instead of a bully like Julius Randle, if you need to go one-on-one and a guy to get you a bucket, probably lean towards Julius Randle. If Anthony Edwards is fatigued down the stretch or dealing with foul trouble, don't want to get a charge against him or anything like that, you got options. And this team with Dante DiVincenzo also stepping up his game, being one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA over the last couple months, this team is a 4-star contender. I still think that the Golden State Warriors are in a tier above, along with OKC, Boston, and Cleveland. I've got 4 teams in the 5-star tier. And that loss yesterday by the Golden State Warriors, Amen Thompson, what a performance by the Houston Rockets to absolutely shut down Steph Curry. It's going to be an absolute dogfight in the Western Conference. I'm not ready for it. Like I'm already stressing out by all the good teams that are going to get eliminated in this play-in tournament. We're looking. I'm telling you, this is crazy. We're looking at the possibility of the Lakers getting the number 2 seed in the Western Conference or being eliminated in the play-in tournament. That's what the next week is going to tell us, because they have the opportunity to get the number 2 seed or the number 8 seed. And if you're in the number 8 seed, you're 2 losses away from being eliminated from the playoffs before they even start. And that's where we're at with the Lakers. They can be anywhere from number 2 and number 8. And that goes for Minnesota. That goes for Golden State. That goes for Houston, Memphis. It's going to be crazy, and I can't wait for it.
Tom, where can people go find all the work, buddy?
My X feed, Tom Haberstroh, also Tom_Haberstroh on Instagram. If you love Top Chef, got a Top Chef podcast going right now that's kicking into high gear. So go check that out and TomTheFinder.com.
Do you really think Zach is smarter than you are when it comes to basketball?
Yeah, he's a big bully, that guy.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to get on his bad side.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time, man. Have a good week, and we'll chat soon.
All right, Spence. Have a good one.
Tom Haberstroh. Zach Harper, bully? Question mark? Do you get that feeling from Zach?
I can see it, maybe.
Is it the beard?
I think it's his. I think it's he's got this platform that you were talking about. He can say whatever he wants. He's got this high rise in Los Angeles.
I don't think
that's our guy, Zach Harper.
I don't think he's a very big dude. I think Zach's like 5'7", 5'8". Maybe you don't have to be big and tall to be a bully. These days, you just bully people online, I guess. That's what the cowards do.
You only need online to be a bully now.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
You can just do it in your office.
All right, Zach does not stop by today. He will this week. That was Tom, who stops by this show this week, today, whatever. Brought to you by IFA Country Stores. Time to start thinking about the lawn. It's warm outside. It's going to stay warm for a while. Any drive to the basket begins with the first step on the court. That's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 crabgrass preventer. And their lawn food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. All right, we'll switch gears from basketball to hockey. Utah Hockey Club. Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game. Belle Frazier from the Trib is our guest. We're going to do an hour with Tony Parks in studio coming up in a bit. Busy show on this beautiful spring-like Monday afternoon. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. I'm about to send out my prize picks lineup for the national championship game tonight via social media, which I never do. But they've asked me to do it.
Influencer.
I feel bad. So before I do this, it'll be up on my Twitter page, maybe Instagram. I hate social media. But there are a valued client of ours, so I'm going to do this. Let me just say, do not copy these picks. None of us know what we're doing, okay? The ones that present themselves as experts are just trying to sell you something. I'm trying to take care of a client, so I'm about to send out my Prize Picks lineup. I've got a little parlay going on for the national championship game tonight. Tony Park's live in studio in a bit, but joining us now, Belle Frazier, Salt Lake Tribune. Belle, happy Monday. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Are you one that likes to risk a couple of ducats here and there on sports? You ever bet? You ever get involved in any of this stuff?
No, not at all. I do not touch the betting.
Belle, that is the smart approach. I'm very, very proud of you. Hey, put into context, because I am old enough, and I very much know that you are not, but I am old enough to remember back in March of 1994 when Wayne Gretzky set the record for goals scored, and he has held the record since March of 1994. And once upon a time, Belle, it felt like people talked about this, like they talk about John Stockton's assist record now. Like there's no way anybody is ever passing this, and Ovechkin does it. Put this into context for us.
Yeah, it was always known as the impossible record. And Sportsnet released an interview with Ovechkin actually yesterday from like 10 years ago or something at the World Championships. And he was like, well, of course, Elliot Friedman asked him if he ever thought he could break it. And he was like, of course not. Like, that's impossible, especially with the modern game right now, the goaltenders and how much better defensemen are. And just, it's a more high-skilled game, but there's definitely less space out there, and goalies are better, and they have bigger pads. And so I think everyone just put it in the back of their mind that Gretzky would forever hold that record. And Ovechkin defied all odds, and I think people were questioning it the past few years when he slowed down and the Capitals looked like they might be going towards a rebuild of sorts. But over the summer, they retooled. They brought in some guys, and other guys like Dylan Strome, who assisted on that goal with Tom Wilson, have just had really good seasons. And from getting swept by the Rangers in the first round last year, the Washington Capitals might win the President's Trophy, probably will. So I think that definitely helped with the fact. But yeah, an incredible achievement. Definitely had goosebumps watching that happen. I think if you're a hockey fan or just sports fan in general, those moments in history are really cool to witness, and congrats to him. It's been a really fun race to watch.
Now, I guess we should learn our lesson, and Gen Xers like myself learn our lesson when we say, this will never be broken. But does it feel like this is a record that's – you have to play, Belle, as you know, at such a high level for so long to even touch where Gretzky was and Ovechkin now is. Does this feel like one of those records that might be, standing for a long, long time?
It definitely feels like it, right? But like you said, how can we sit there and say that when that's what we were all saying 10 years ago? So who knows? But I think it'll probably be a while before someone gets close to this. But I won't say a definite no, because look what Ovechkin did.
For sure. All right. It's probably time to say that all of our dreams of seeing Stanley Cup hockey in our market year one, it's probably time to say that's not happening. Fair to say?
Fair to say, for sure.
All right. It feels like it's less on the performance of the Utah Hockey Club and more on whatever the hell St. Louis figured out. How did the Blues get so hot, Belle?
It's wild. I mean, you think about 3 weeks ago to a month ago, Utah was within 4 points and 2 points at a certain time from the St. Louis Blues, and it was always catch the Canucks, catch the Blues. And the Blues have won 12 straight, I believe, franchise record. They have just gotten off running, and we've talked about it before. Utah was going to need help to make the playoffs. It didn't matter if they won out or won 80 or 90% of the remaining regular season games. They would need the teams around them to lose. And the St. Louis Blues did the exact opposite. So that definitely hurt Utah's chances. But I also think no matter how well the club has been playing down the stretch here, it's those games in October, November, December when they were still figuring things out, when they were giving up late leads, when they were losing in overtime and didn't have a full healthy roster, that's really caught up to them. You think about the amount of games that have went through their fingers this season, and it's the same for any team not making the playoffs. But it's hard to write off a game early on in the season when those points would mean a lot right now. But I don't think Utah Hockey Club fans should be that upset. The expectation this year was to just have a better season than last year, keep the rebuild going, and that has happened. Young stars have played well. The new veterans have played well, and they kept themselves in it until the final stretch of the season. So I think that was the goal for the front office, and next year will probably be, the official push for their first playoff berth since the COVID bubble.
And winning 3 of their last 4, after they went down to Tampa and got spanked 8-0, part of me wondered, like, all right, they might know the deal. They might know that this fight for the wild card is not going to happen. But I've been impressed. Obviously, I mean, Winnipeg has been insanely good all year. Calgary's no slouch. The Blackhawks aren't good. But what have they done well winning 3 of the last 4, Bell, since they came back from that road trip that wasn't great?
Yeah, I agree. When you saw that Tampa game 8-0, you thought maybe they would just put their hands up then, take Karel Vejmelka out of net, just let the rest of the season play out. But they did the exact opposite. And head coach Andre Tourigny said his team is the easiest team to coach in the NHL right now because they're so locked in. They care so much. He doesn't need to go in there and give a rallying speech right now. He said they're blocking out the outside noise and all they want to do is play and play well. So I think for them, even if you're not playing for the playoffs right now, you're playing to win and build momentum for next season. And the Winnipeg Jets were a really good measuring stick for Utah, the way they dominated and handled that game. That's the number 1 team in the NHL. And while Utah will not see them in the first round of the playoffs this year, they might next year. And I think it's a good confidence booster to know that you can play that shutdown of a game against a team that is a Stanley Cup contender. So they're still motivated, and there's a lot of guys playing for more. I talked to Nick DeSimone today, who has been their 7th defenseman since January when he got claimed off of waivers, and he might go in tomorrow because John Marino is day-to-day with an upper body injury, but he's on an expiring contract. Nick Bukestad is, Michael Carconi is. So guys in there are playing for the next deal. They're playing for a lot more than playoffs, too. So I think there's still a lot of motivation in there, and they want to give their fans a fun end to the first season, even if it's not a playoff berth.
Oh, Belle, I've got your Twitter pulled up. I see you've discovered my friends at Central 9th Market.
Oh, my gosh. That was like the best sandwich I've ever had.
Yeah. Have you tried the breakfast sandwich?
No, I was going to get the breakfast sandwich, but I went with the mortadella.
Okay, and that's a safe bet, but you got to try the breakfast sandwich soon. It will blow your mind. It's that good.
Okay, I'll go back. I was going to go back anyway, so that'll be my order this time.
Yeah, shout out to my buddies over at Central 9th. And you probably discovered by now that Falk thinks he's a foodie, right? Like he has all the recommendations, right?
He has some good recs. He does.
Don't say that out loud. It just furthers the narrative and it just inflates his ego. But anyway, moving on. So you referenced the push next year. So let's move into that space because if we're honest, it's just not happening this year. There are still games to talk about, 4 or 5, depending on which team you are. If you're Bill Armstrong and if you're the decision makers and the roster constructors, are you simply allowing this young group to continue to grow? Are there places you think additions need to be made? How do they take that next step next year so we actually do see Stanley Cup hockey in Salt Lake?
I think it's a mix of both. Utah's in an interesting position because it's young talent like Cooley, Gunther, Jersey's still young, Kessering, all of those guys, McBain, Josh Stone. They've really had strong years, and you can see if this team is going to be successful in the future, it's going to be those guys carrying it. Obviously, you throw Clayton Keller in there, but that's a given. So I think they feel comfortable with what their core will be moving forward. And then you also have to balance. They have a lot of prospects in the pipeline. Everyone's excited about TJ Ginla, Cole Baudon. If they can get Simashev and Daniel Boot to come over from the KHL next season. So those guys will probably spend some time in the AHL, but you definitely have to mark your window of when you want them to make the transition. But I do think Utah needs some reinforcements up front before those players are NHL ready. We've talked about this for a while, but someone in their top 6 that just has a scoring punch that can put away the backbreaker in the third period, who can extend the lead, and even a top 6 center as well. I think you're just looking for a little bit more edge, flair, consistency in that top 6 that Utah maybe hasn't had throughout the season. So they definitely have their main pieces, but I think if they could bring someone in, we've talked about them being in the Mitch Marner stakes. Who knows if that will actually happen? Sam Bennett is a center from the Florida Panthers who won a Stanley Cup with Kevin Stenlund. You never know the perfect fit, but they have a lot of cap space this summer, so I imagine they'll go through all of their options. And then Utah brought in some of its biggest players like Sergachev and Marino last summer through trade. So Utah has some players that haven't lived up to expectations this year. They also have a lot of draft picks and prospects that they could bundle. So I don't think people should only look at free agency for where Utah might impact the roster. Could definitely be through trade too. That's something General Manager Bill Armstrong did. But yes, I think for them to turn the corner next year to make the playoffs, they're going to need that sharpshooter or a legitimate top six center, just something to kind of bolster them there.
You know, you referenced some of the games they allowed to slip away earlier on in the season, leaving points on the table. It's kind of wild looking at the standings where you look at the Eastern Conference, and the Bruins, the Flyers, and the Penguins are the three worst teams in the East, and they're three of like the biggest brands in all of pro hockey. But there are no teams, Bell, in the East that have fewer home wins than the Utah Hockey Club. The worst home team in the East actually is the Rangers. Sorry for you and I, Ranger fans. 18 wins at the Garden, which is pathetic, but 17 wins at the Delta Center for the Utah Hockey Club. And from my vantage point, Bell, but you're the expert, two things: poor home performances, and then also inability to close out games that you're leading going into the third period. Is that a maturation process? Are you expecting that to be better year two in Salt Lake?
Yeah, it's definitely a maturation process, and I think you've seen it get a lot better in the second half of the season. A majority of those losses on home ice came in the first half when guys admitted to it. They're like, we're gripping our sticks too tight. We want to win in front of these fans. We're not dealing with the pressure well. And they were throwing away leads. Coach called it emotional. They were letting their mental game get in front of the physical game on the ice. But I think you've really seen that start to shift in the second half, and they've been able to close out games. They've been able to come back from deficits. They've come back from 3-0 deficits in games to force overtime in a shootout. So I definitely think you're seeing them believe in their own process a bit more. And then once you start winning on home ice and you get the crowd behind you, it just builds that momentum. And you've really seen that here in the past. But I think it was also important that they didn't freak out. A lot of those games they were losing on home ice in the beginning, it was only by a goal or two. So it wasn't like they were getting blown out every time they came to Salt Lake City. So for them and a young team who's growing, they always talked about taking the good from the games, even if it was a loss, and I think they stuck with that. They didn't write every loss off as a terrible performance, and it's got them to winning on home ice now, and it's definitely something I imagine they put a big emphasis on going forward as the new market here continues to grow.
What is going on with our New York Rangers? Why has this not been the step up that we were all expecting after the solid season a year ago?
I have tapped out. I cannot.
Oh no. Bell, you can't tap out. We can't tap out.
I watch it when I can, but it's too depressing to fully invest in when, my full-time job is also watching hockey. So I'll put on the Lightning Rangers game tonight because Utah's not playing, but it's a tough team to invest in this year for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, let me move over here. So I have kind of a running joke with a lot of the hockey guests I have on this year that we are now Hockeytown, USA, a moniker that, of course, exists in Detroit, Michigan, where they throw octopus on the ice. Did we find our answer to throwing octopus on the ice, where fans apparently are now throwing broccoli on the ice at the Delta Center?
It seems like it. That was really funny. They were interviewing Karel Vejmelka after his 33-save performance against the Winnipeg Jets in his 20th consecutive start. You would never know. So an outstanding showing from him that helped Utah win the game. But there's been, shout out Brandon from Utah Hockey Club on Twitter or X. He runs the fan page. He started showing up to the games with a broccoli hat face mask thing on, and a bunch of other people started wearing the broccoli hat. So broccoli seemed to be the vegetable to represent the Melka or the team. And then, after the game, 2 nights ago, raw, real broccoli was on the ice. So we'll see. That's the first time it happened. We'll see if it continues to keep happening. But it's really cool, without a team name, without much hockey history, fans have found their own traditions. And I'll always think of Utah Hockey Club when I see broccoli now too. So that's been a really cool subplot to the season, just seeing how fans kind of make their own hockey culture before the official branding is released.
Is the plural of octopus octopi? I honestly don't know.
I honestly don't know either.
Belle, you're a writer. Okay, I'm an idiot radio host.
That mad journalist over here.
Okay, all right. Hey,
Octopuses.
Oh, thank you. Porter, my producer, looked it up. Octopuses? That doesn't sound right. I'm going with octopi.
It is.
All right. Okay, fine. What happens? So they signed Vamelka to the contract extension, and we're, of course, still tracking the progress and hoping Connor's doing well. How do you think the goalie situation settles in during the offseason going into next year, Belle?
It'll be interesting. I actually just wrote a story on this, but teams need two goaltenders throughout the NHL season. Any team that is going to be a contender, is going to make the playoffs, they need to be able to have a 1A, 1B, and that doesn't necessarily need to mean a goalie rotation where you're going one on and one off, but it's no longer Henrik Lundqvist playing 70-plus game seasons for 4 years in a row, or Andrew Raycroft played 72 out of 82 games in the early 2000s. NHL starters are playing 50 tops games a year. So it's great that Vamelka is getting this testing on him. They have a lot of data on him, on how he needs to recover and if he can handle long stretches, which he's proven he can, which makes people feel good about his contract. But like you said, the hope is that Connor Ingram is able to come back next year. He has 1 year left on his contract, that he's healthy, that he's ready to go. And then I think you feel really confident in a Vamelka-Ingram kind of duo there, that Ingram would be able to come in when Vamelka needs a rest or just split up the workload. But I think it's definitely something the team needs to think about. If Ingram is not able to return, they're going to have to go out and look for another goalie. They have good prospects, but none of them are kind of the fortified, certified backup that you need. I think you've seen that they don't trust it because they have started Vamelka for 20 games straight. So the simplified answer is they're going to need someone else as well, and we hope it's Connor Ingram.
All right, Belle. What is the latest intel? You referenced a team without a name, and we keep hearing reports here or there about trademarks filed and momentum in this direction, that direction. What's the latest on this project to name our hockey club out here?
Yeah, I mean, Smith Entertainment Group is smart enough to know that everyone, fans and media alike, are sleuthing all over the trademark website. All of that's public information. So what they've done is they've paid to extend the application process for basically all of the names. It's more than a dozen names. So Squirm and Blizzard and names that obviously are not real contenders are still active under their ownership on the trademark website. So that way, if everything's active and they don't kill any trademark applications, then you can't tell which one they're going to go with. But the only three logos other than the Utah Hockey Club inaugural season logos that are registered on the trademark website under SCG Hockey are the Mammoth Outlaw and Utah Hockey Club /Yeti logo that they represented during the fan survey that were leaked. So although they've extended all those names, don't worry, fans. The ones you voted for are still the top three. And it sounds like they're going to announce the name sometime around the NHL draft in June. So no real updates. I mean, the news this week was that they just extended all of them. So the news was that nothing has been eliminated, essentially. But yeah, I would keep an eye out for NHL draft June when the season ends for an official announcement.
Last thing, Bella, set you loose on this. The hockey club announced they're going to give out some awards, their individual awards after their final home game. I think it's Nashville, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, coming up. Okay, so after the Nashville game, I'll just ask you, who's the MVP and why? What do you think?
Oof, that's so hard. I would have said Sergachev, and can I give three? I'm going to go
ahead. Yeah.
Sergachev, Vamelka. I mean, I just think all three of those guys, this team isn't anywhere close to sniffing a postseason run if they don't have the seasons that they do. Sergachev came in and certified himself as a number one defenseman. He had to relearn how to walk this offseason after breaking his left leg. At the end of last year, he's on the power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5, logging 25-plus minutes a night, took on a leadership role, gotten the assistant captain A on his jersey a couple months into the season. So I think he's been everything they needed him to be. Clayton Keller, I feel like there's no explanation needed there. He is captain clutch. He's carried this team throughout the last 7 to 8 years before he even had the captaincy, and his production has been bar none. And then Vamelka, we've talked about it. Bill Armstrong even said it. He saved their season when they were in a really tough spot. So I think all three of those guys are deserving of it, and we'll see what fans think and what the higher ups pick.
Are you a fan of bacon?
Bacon?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Belle, what you need to do, because now I'm only thinking about sandwiches at this point after I saw the picture. The Central Ninth breakfast sandwich, if you're brave enough, the mortadella and the bacon on the sandwich is the way to go. It's a lot of meat, but if
man.
it is excellent, Belle, I promise you.
Okay, I will go back. I'll order that, and I'll have an update for you in weeks' time.
Perfect. And also, just know that I'm the one that told Falk about Central Ninth, just so you know.
Okay, noted.
Okay, thanks, Belle. Have a good week, all right?
Yep.
All right, Belle Frazier covers the Utah Hockey Club for the Salt Lake Tribune. At Belle Frazier1 is where you find her on Twitter. She's a really bright young journalist. My guess is she's not going to be here for very long. She's got a little podcast over the Trib, and she does a really, really good job. I am firm in my belief that the term for multiple octopus is octopi. I think the plural for octopus is it's not octopuses. That
Octopuses
sounds,
or octopedes?
No, it's octopi.
Sorry.
Saying octopuses on air honestly sounds like I could get kicked off air. It sounds inappropriate.
Maybe it does sound that way, but hey, you asked your resident wildlife guy here.
No, that's
on the
fair.
show. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Have you ever swam with either a single octopus or multiple octopi? I'm going with it, man.
I have actually. I have.
You liar. Where?
Like way south of the equator.
Way south of the equator. Okay.
I've been to a place called Marietta Island, which is off the coast of like Puerto Vallarta-ish.
Okay.
And it's like a wildlife refuge.
Plush with octopi.
There, I saw a octopus.
Okay.
No octopuses or octopedes.
It sounds weird. Octopi sounds cleaner and better.
I don't disagree with you. They just don't go with it.
All right. Yeah, well, they should. All right, we'll catch a break. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Tony Parks, my old friend, live in studio, coming up on the other side. On a Monday drive on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, we are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Salt Lake Bees Avenue Hive. All right, opening week starts tomorrow. Look at that. April 8th through the 13th as we kick off our inaugural season at the ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. We've got a bunch of giveaways we're going to tell you about over the next hour because my dear friend, who I've worked with for a number of different years at a number of different places on a number of different games and projects. So on the mic, good coworker, off the mic, dear friend, Tony Parks, live in studio. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Just got back from Albuquerque. Had the old 9-game roadie.
All right.
It was a good time. There's nothing like just waking up every day and going to a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the dream from the time I was oh so little, and to live that once again, just a taste of that again this year is just awesome, man. Just love it. But now we have the home opener, so now it's an entirely different sort of adrenaline and excitement.
So let's stay in this space. Let's do a little Bees. Obviously, the voice of the Bees taking over after our dear friend Steve Klauke retired. May Steve, of course, rest in peace. We all loved Steve, and Tony is stepping into some sizable shoes and has done that now for quite some time. Tell us about the new ballpark. Let's talk to people that may still be disappointed that the Bees have left us here in downtown Salt Lake. What are the new digs like, Tone?
Oh, they're fantastic. I mean, the players raved about the new clubhouse because they were there for a few days right there at Media Day and all that. So a few days before they left on the road trip, they got to check out the clubhouse, which is Major League size. They got to check out some of the amenities, which are Major League-esque. So everything behind the scenes has a Major League look and feel to it. Now the big thing is for the fan experience to be able to reach something like that too. Everything we're trying to do with our TV product, to the limits that we possibly can find, everything is about leveling up. And it's not, hey, we want to try to look like a Met. No. It's the standard. And what was really cool is Steve Klauke had that standard, and I had that standard down on the field for everything we had, whether it was a bad sound system, didn't matter. Everything we could control, we made sure to do it at that level. And so what fans can look forward to is now a ballpark with a better sound system again, now with better amenities, great neighborhood, all those different things that come with it. This isn't to be disrespectful to the old ballpark. That place will always be emotional to me. So when people say, well, is it kind of mixed feelings? Like, well, no, I mean, it was a wonderful tribute to be a part of the last year at that ballpark and the first year at this ballpark. And what happens is, just like any situation you've ever had, if you're moving out of a home that was personal to you and emotional to you and had memories and all of that, and you move to your new house and you go, well, there's some reasons why we moved here and we really enjoy this. So for those who are disappointed that the Bees moved to a different place, like there are so many things about the experience there I think you're going to like, where you say, okay, I liked the old place too, and I like this one as well.
This comes down to something extremely simplistic. We can reduce it to simply this, Tony. Where do you live? Right?
Right.
Like people were going to react based off of where they live. I live 5 minutes away from where we're broadcasting right now. So the fact that I was able to take tracks or head on down to the ballpark and be there within 10 minutes is something I will miss. It just comes down to where you live, but it also comes down to progress. And we all understand what the Millers are trying to do with their big picture viewpoint. And you and I you still work for the Millers. I worked for them for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to their professionalism. Steve Starks is a great friend and a mentor in a lot of ways. And
huge.
Is there anybody that cares more about doing good in our community than Gail? Probably not, right? So I understand the disappointment, but I think when you take a step back and understand the 30,000-foot view of what the Miller Company is trying to do for our market with the project eventually bringing Major League Baseball here, even though you may not love it because you don't live close to the ballpark, it's probably a necessary step.
They spent multiple decades as tenants to a place that was downtown or in the ballpark neighborhood, if you will, and they did a great job of being stewards in the community to that exact community. And by the way, they've still poured in great money to other areas of the community all over the state. So it's not a matter of them being cruel or selfish. It is simply a matter of, okay, now they own their own place that they purchased, by the way, that they built, and that they have in a neighborhood that they like, and they're setting that up to obviously be something that would be their minor league team if a major league team ever happens to arrive. They have the stadium site ready. They have a number of other headaches that go on behind the scenes of a major league stadium and what it takes and all that. I mean, the fact that they kept this so low for 2 years, I mean, tip of your hat to that. Because when the news came out, many of us at the ballpark, at Smith's Ballpark at the time, were shocked. We're like, this isn't some new development. This means people kept their trap shut for like 2 years on this, on all the developments behind it. Next thing you know, we're all standing there at a press conference, and they've got shovels dug into the dirt, and you're going, wait, this is serious. I actually was filling in that day. I want to say I was filling in for Bill Riley in the middle of the day, and I came right from that to here thinking, oh, my gosh, what did I just watch? Because Gail didn't step up and say, we would like to have a team here. Oh, no, she was more than confident about the 5-tool player that Salt Lake is on having what it takes, being what it takes, and being ready for the opportunity when it comes.
So opening week, as far as the home opener, starts tomorrow through the 13th. I would encourage you to go to slbs.com. They've got a great ticket deal that I just saw on their website. Tony, I've got the generic scripts, so giveaways include pennants, T-shirts, beanies, more every night of the first homestand. Do you have any more specifics that you can fill in?
Rally towels. You're going to have all sorts of stuff coming up, man. I mean, it's like the week to be there is opening week, and I understand it's going to be high demand, and oh, boy, do I get the text messages now.
Of course.
Hey, man, how's the season going? It's great. I don't have tickets, man. I'm sorry. It's high demand.
It's part of the deal, man.
I know, and I got it, and I'm not – I don't blame him. I'm like, I'm sorry, man.
You know what I started doing? Because, as you know, I've talked to you about this before. This has been part of my entire life, right? Like the call from the friend you haven't talked to in years is like, hey.
7 years.
Man,
yeah.
and you know – I honestly have more respect for people that cut to the chase as opposed to like, dude, we should do lunch. Oh, by the way, do you have any jazz tickets? Like, you don't want to do lunch. Okay. So I started a number of years ago, like if it was the Jazz, if it's the Utes, if it's RSL, if I get a friend, and I'm using air quotes around friend, that I haven't talked to in years, and he hits me up like, hey, you got any hookups? I copy the website, and I text them the website, UtahUtes.com, SLBs.com. Right. But, yes, I mean, folks are excited, right? The buzz is palpable.
They should be. They absolutely should be. The hard part is, yeah, I mean, it's such high demand. I mean, and it should be. I mean, it's a brand new ballpark.
Yeah.
Especially for the premium seating and all the suites and things like that for people who experience that. I mean, it's another level. The suites behind home plate are closer to the plate than the mound. So you're closer to the batter than the pitcher is. It's amazing, like the amenities and the top level sort of experience that the fans are going to be in for this. I mean, I've been in all these meetings, and not that I've been dictating any of this, but overhearing the discussions and the fine details that these people are getting into, down to the very down to the very smallest detail to ensure that people traffic flow moves well. Not just traffic flow of cars, but how do we make sure that people traffic flow moves really smoothly through here? How do we know that if somebody's confused, they can immediately identify someone that can help them right away, like within 12 feet? I mean, they get into the fine details of this. It's been awesome to kind of watch that process. I know doesn't sound like the most exciting thing, but as you think about it from a fan experience, and I know I'm going to be in the booth, but the fan experience still means a lot to me. I've worked in fan experience for a long time. You know, we had so many restrictions based on so many other details that we couldn't control. Now we can. And I think that that part is going to be awesome. Not to mention everybody who's put together the entertainment that's going to be a part of this.
Vinny C?
Yeah, Vinny C is been consulted. No, I'm just kidding.
He is in the ranks where he should be able to consult across the country when people are looking, for entertainment tips.
You and that whole thing, man.
That's my guy.
I know it is. I know, but the storm you caused.
That's my guy.
Was the greatest.
I just love that he had the nerve to call himself Vinny C.
And he did a heck of a job, man.
Vinny C's a legend.
And then from Brecken Johnson to Katie Brotherson, I mean, Ashley Havili, Kim Brown to Sammy Miller. I mean, the work they've put in to put on a great show. I'm excited to see what they have.
So, again, check out slbs.com for more info. Opening week starts tomorrow. It is the new ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. Fireworks and drone nights throughout the season. Brunch every Sunday home game.
That's the winner, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And now the games are at noon on Sunday. So
that's
it's like
great.
the perfect brunch time hour. Yeah.
Bark in the park for 9 games. You can bring your dog to the game. They're going to do a Superman night, cowboy-themed weekend. So, yes, they have left us in the capital city, but go support them if you can. All right, Tony, let's learn about the team a little bit. I can anecdotally, it was 2012. And you and I were with our old station back in the day, and it was announced that Gordon and I were going to be doing a number of shows at the ballpark in preparation for opening week. And so I go to the ballpark and I grab our guy Klauks, I grab Steve, and I say, hey, who should I interview? I don't know any of these players. So I'm not grinding on minor league baseball.
I know where
tape.
this one's going.
And Steve says to me, and he points this way. Steve points this way. He said, there's a player over there named Mike Trout. Go interview him today because he's leaving next week and he will never come back. Now, ironically enough, he came back for a rehab assignment, but you get the deal. Like Steve knew that Mike was generational. I'm not saying is there a Mike Trout on this roster, but field players, pitchers, batters, who are some names to watch out for the Bees this year?
Well, I mean, right now, Zach Neto had the assignment there with the Bees, which was awesome. I thought he played really well in Albuquerque. But, there's a number of guys that I'm, really excited about, their future right around the corner with some of the excitement. Gustavo Campero is a guy that had some time in the bigs last year.
Left fielder.
Yeah, he's exciting. Man, he is just you love those guys that show up to the ballpark with this big smile and this big energy. And, it's a child's game, and you want to see them play it with a kid's love in their heart. It's that guy. The other guy I really like is Bryce Teodosio. He was a kind of a fan favorite last year. Comes in 5 total triples in his college and professional career. Comes out and leads the PCL with 12 of them, 40 stolen bases, stole 26 in a row. I mean, just kind of every minute it feels like he's getting better and better and better. He stole home in a day game that we had last week in Albuquerque. The heads-up, tag up to get to second and help get a big insurance run. Like, if you love good heads-up baseball, this team is really fun to watch. They're really smart. Yolmer Sanchez, he's a Gold Glover with the White Sox. This dude made a big-time play, made 2 or 3 of them yesterday defensively that I thought proved to be big. Sebastian Rivero is a really smart catcher. Deked a guy just standing there like a statue and then swipe tagged him real quick. I mean, just when you get into the fine, if you're a big, hardcore baseball fan, you're going to love this group because you can see them get into the fine millimeters that make the difference between winning and losing. So it's fun. Brett Carey is a pitcher, I think, is a guy that fans would like to see.
The minor league baseball ecosystem and culture has always fascinated me. And I talk about this in the world of professional golf as it's Augusta week at the Masters. And if you're not a big golf fan, and I've become a big golf fan over the past 4 or 5 years, and I'm obsessed with trying to get better at it. I really enjoy playing, but you hear the name of a dude that wins the tournament, and you're like, I've never heard of this guy before. He must have just started playing pro golf last week.
Right.
And then you read about him. It's like, this is his 180th start on the PGA Tour. He was a Korn Ferry guy. He's been on the tour for 15 years, and he actually finally broke through. And I had an experience with my friend's brother. His name is Adam Rosales, and Adam toiled in the minor leagues for like a decade.
Yeah, I remember Adam.
And Adam was the type of guy where it's like, I think a lot of people just would have quit because literally for 9 or 10 years, he was with Sacramento and he would come into town and we go watch him play against the Bees. And as he entered his like late 20s, early 30s, we're kind of like, all right, Adam's just going to be a minor league play and a triple league baseball, which is great. That's an amazing level to get to. He eventually got a bunch of call-ups and spent about 6 or 7 years playing in the majors. But if you were only a fan of like the A's when they called Adam up or Arizona when they got him, you're like, oh, he must be a young. No, he toiled for like a decade before he got his Major League Baseball call-up. What kind of, in your experience, what kind of people are these players that are continuing to toil in the minors with the hope that at one day you get a Moonlight Graham Field of Dreams one at bat? What's it like kind of getting to know these guys?
That's who our manager is. I mean, Keith Johnson had that. I want to say he had 4 ABs at the major league level. Spent a lot of years in that game.
That is wild.
And he was not staying at the Kimpton next to the Golden One Center in Sacramento.
Right.
He was not staying at the Red Rock 5-star casino next to a brand new ballpark in Vegas. I mean, he was staying at La Quinta's and, I mean, no disrespect to La
breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Like that was a part of the per diem, probably.
For sure,
right?
yeah.
Like this dude was, taking the bus from, I don't know exactly where, but let's say Salt Lake to Reno rather than the flight now. I mean, the amenities are totally different. This dude doesn't have to tell people his story. They just feel it from him, and nobody wants them to win more than he does. And he gets it, man. So these dudes are guys that, they're hungry for it. They're honest, and they're very humble. Hungry, honest, humble. I was talking with Chase Silseth the other day. He was the first guy from the 21 class to make it to the major leagues. Was back last year after an elbow injury. finally got himself back to premier level, ERA at like .87. I mean, movement on the pitches, you can feel it. He's coming back. All of a sudden, the elbow goes out, and he's got surgery, and he's done for the year.
Yep.
So he comes back, and I see him last week. He's a New Mexico native. Dude goes out there, 2 errors in the first inning behind him. Wheels are wobbling everywhere. He tightens it up, minimizes the damage, gives up 1 earned, gets the win. And he talked about, no, I hired a mental performance coach. I did this, all this. They're big on self-examination, and they're competitive. I mean, these dudes, we forget, man. We see these guys out there, and they're tall, and they're big, and they're, they've got, great build, and they're good athletes. And we forget, man, these dudes from the time that they were holding a foam bat, this was the biggest dream they ever had. And it's real, man. And there's a big difference between 2 commas in your paycheck and 1. And it's just everything about it. It's so much more about, we know about the money and the amenities, but the personal pride to get there. And so they really want to fine tune their game. The other thing I'll say about these guys is every inch matters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watching Bryce Teodosio during batting practice in the outfield, you can see him with the reps, the mental reps. I mean, he's standing there working on a first move. Nobody's hit the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just visualizing it. And then all of a sudden in the game, you see him chase a ball to the corner and leap into the sidewall and make an amazing catch. And you're like, okay, the millimeters to make that play is how that happened.
Yeah.
And he thought it looked like he robbed a home run. I watched him time himself out. Looked like he robbed a home run last week, and actually the contact with the wall jarred it out. But you could see these things are everything to them.
Well, I
love it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting life lesson. It really is, because we, as the just the consuming public, as people that watch games or go to games, or if you watch movies or if you listen to music, like, you learn about the band, you learn about the athlete, you learn about the actor, and then because you have no frame of reference for who they are, you're like, oh, this must be their first album. And then you read about, like, no, they've dropped 15 albums since 2003.
Yeah.
They're just becoming famous 22 years later because they continue to toil.
Right.
And I just think it would be so easy, and you do see a lot of minor league baseball players hang it up because they don't feel like they're ever going to get that shot. And the drive to keep working for that one moment is always something that I just respect so much.
Oh, it is. Because the thing I love about baseball is it's an everyday game.
Mm-hmm.
It's an everyday game. Sometimes people, we worked in the NBA, and there was a good friend of ours that said to us after a post-game show one day, he's like, that's the thing, is like, you have a game every day. And I'm like, yeah, that's the beauty of this thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go well, we got one tomorrow. It's good news.
Mm-hmm.
If it does go well, hey, let's do it again tomorrow. Like, it's all about, like, recommitting yourself every day to being the best version of yourself that you can be. It's never just another game. It's never just another inning. It's never just another AB. And I love that about the work that they put in. And honestly, when you're around that, it impacts you.
For sure.
It impacts you the way you work out. It impacts you in your relationships. Like, you think of different ways to create the proper alignment in every part of your life. These dudes are champions, man. I mean, I don't know if they'll – we got a guy that was the winning pitcher in Game 6 of the World Series in 2020, Victor Gonzalez. We have dudes that won Gold Gloves. We have guys that did some incredible stuff. And you're thinking, man, somebody may not remember that. But let me tell you, the people that do and the people that know you're a champion, dude.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we'll catch a break real quick. Like, how many years did Steve do it? How many games?
29 years. He was over 4,000 games.
4,000 games. And I would go to other markets, and I'd just be driving around in my rental car, and I'd turn on a baseball game. I'd be like, Steve's better than this guy.
Yeah.
Right? But, to do something for 29 years, over 4,000 games, and it's the same thing as a player. I'm sure Steve, if his phone rang one day and it was the Dodgers or something, that's a bad example because they had Vin Scully or whatever. But if that's a Major League Baseball call-up for an announcer, your life changes the same way a player does.
Yes.
It's kind of the same dynamic, So you just respect the fact that you keep going even when the call doesn't come.
I think Steve had, I forget, a handful of call-ups. Like, he had some with the Angels. He did something with the Blue Jays. And, and he had different series that he covered. And I was so happy for him. And, you couldn't help but to be happy. That's like a call-up for him. There's only 30 of those spots. And so that guy brought it every single day, even after he knew it was very unlikely it was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And he still brought it nobody brought it like he did.
That's a real lesson, Tony.
That's why with this job, I tell people it's personal. People are trying to say, like, it's never personal. Yes, it is. This one's personal because of the connection I had with him, the connection I had with the team, the connection I had with individual people, my family history and how it weaved into it. And there's a responsibility with that job, not just to be great at and perform well, but it's everything behind the scenes, the cultural part, the camaraderie part, the leadership part. It's you bring it every day. And so Keith Johnson, the manager of the team, and I have talked a bit about that too, because he was around Steve a lot. And he's around Steve as a player. He's around Steve as a manager. And it's like, yeah, no, he brought it every day, and I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
And we'll bring it differently, but there's a standard there. And I love that Steve had it, and I'm honored to follow into it.
Salt Lake Bees have a new hive. Opening week gets rolling tomorrow through the 13th. It's the inaugural season at the ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. Every game's going to have giveaways, as Tony just kind of outlined. So check out slbees.com for more information. More with Tony coming up next. We'll switch gears. We'll do a little bit on the local scene, maybe some college basketball and football, maybe some jazz stuff. But let's welcome in on a Monday afternoon Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Give him a call at 801-424-DISH. 801-424-DISH. Bottom line, save a grip of money on a grip of things. Go ahead, Ryan.
It is a great time to take advantage of this, and we're down to the last couple days with this Netflix offer. Guys, most of us have this. We pay for it, and to get it free for the next 2 years, it's $430 in your pocket. That's just for the ad-free version. Call up, get set up with Dish. We'll throw in Netflix for the next 2 years. We'll get you promotional credits for the next 2 years with a price guarantee. This makes it so the price will not change. And I tell you, the amount of savings we have for customers, cable customers, guys, if you take a look at your bill and you call the cable company, you ask, hey, this is too much, I'm going to change, give me a better price, they'll just raise your rate. This is what actually happened to one of the customers that signed up on Friday. They actually raised his rate $30 more. Call us up. Let's lower your bill, $200. That's what we did with this guy, is about $200 a month. This is truly thousands. Plus, you got Netflix free, and we can have you installed, and we'll throw in dinner at JCW's on top of everything. Listen, best price guarantee. We'll get you installed the best product, and we'll also throw in all the extra free stuff. Call 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. More with Tony Parks live in studio coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Tony Parks is live in studio, the voice of the Salt Lake Bees, and a number of other things.
Is there anybody that doesn't like Tom Petty?
I don't know. That would be tough. He's like vanilla ice cream. I mean, everyone likes a scoop of vanilla ice cream sometimes, right?
Exactly.
May he rest in peace.
He may not be your fave, but I've never heard anybody who's like, oh, Tom Petty sucks. I hated Tom Petty.
Tom Petty has some incredible
really
albums, some incredible songs. Yeah. And for a guy that kind of had a monotone voice without a lot of range, got to give him a lot of credit.
I do, for sure. For sure.
Outside of being the voice of the Salt Lake Bees, you wear several different hats. What's the latest? I can't keep up with all your jobs. What are you doing lately?
I finished up with all the college basketball stuff with ESPN. Loved it. Conference tournament was awesome. Did the Big Sky again this year. Had a good number of games on ESPN2 and ESPNU, and Joe Cravens and I just once again
Good old Coach Joe.
There's nothing like having a great teammate. He's an outstanding teammate. He's a really unselfish player. As a broadcast team, and I mean, you worked with Gordon for all those years. You guys really built something great where there was a great camaraderie. I think the listener always really appreciated it. I know I did. The bizarre left field humor of Gordon was outstanding.
Yeah.
Joe Cravens has that. I mean, just has it, man. And so he would always have ways to make fun of me that was just perfect. That right touch, Tony, I'm going to tell you, when I was hard on my players, that was, it was tough love, but they knew I loved them. Now with you, it's tough. But with them, he just always have these little things that were fun. And so he doesn't take himself so seriously. And then people would say, well, you're like the Bill Walton. No, that dude is prepped and loved Bill Walton. Prepped, and the inside of the game was great, and the humor.
Yeah.
So I did a ton of that. It was a blast. Did some Utes games as well, Utes women's games throughout the year on ESPN Plus. So really had a great time with it, man, throughout the year. So the college basketball stuff was in the rearview mirror, and then now just some production stuff all around, and then enjoying toddler life.
That's
with,
right.
Little Sophie.
How old Soph now?
She's 17 months
17 months.
And she's fun.
You better enjoy it, dude.
I know.
You're going to blink and they're gone.
She's just a blast, man.
Connor is turning 24 in August.
No, because I remember when he was like 10.
Yes, I have a 24-year-old son in August, so you better enjoy it. I say it all the time. It's funny. There's an intimacy to radio that's a little bit different than any other medium. It's one of the reasons I like it. You get a little bit of it with podcasting, but Chris Russo, Mad Dog, talks about this all the time, how the intimacy of live radio as a expression in the medium that it is, there's a more intimate connection to your audience because you are literally hearing me talk. This is not prepared. I have notes. You know me. I do the work. But this is unscripted, live communication where I'm talking into this microphone, and wherever you're listening, it is coming through your radio, and you're hearing exactly what I'm saying in real time.
There's nothing like live.
There's a intimacy to this thing that's different, and people over the years have said, what is it like working with other people in radio? And I always say the same thing. If you get along with a person, and if you have good chemistry, there's nothing better than doing that every day for 4 hours with somebody who you like, and you get along with, and you have mutual respect. There's nothing better than doing it with a good partner, and there's nothing worse than doing it day to day with somebody who you just want to strangle in the same studio. So whether it's Joe Cravens or whoever it is, if you have the right partner, there's a magic and an intimacy to this medium that you don't get anywhere else.
You really don't. I think you're spot on with that, and there's nothing like it when the magic really hits, when it's there and the listener looks forward to it. It's another great episode. It's like a part of their daily routine, and you feel that and you sense that. And I've had that before, and there's nothing like it. I had a show that lasted almost 10 years, and that's what we had. It was really, really great.
Yeah.
And having that as a part of the everyday thing, then you look forward to going. You're not sure what's going to happen. Like a guy like Gordon, I mean, the curveballs were incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ask Frank Isola the question where he asked, will there be hookers involved?
All the hookers. I forgot about that.
My favorite part is you going, whoa.
I forget. It was completely.
You're talking about. Frank said, well, I wouldn't go to a Washington Wizards game unless you had a limo and this and that. You're like, yeah. You need a a full dinner and this and that. And Gordon comes out of nowhere and goes, are there going to be hookers involved?
Just out of left field. I'm like, we were talking about the Knicks or something, and Gordon asked if he's hiring hookers. Like, Gordon, what are you doing?
But the way, so there's two parts to this. The way you played off of it.
Uh-huh.
So when people ask me, like, hey, did you enjoy doing the impersonations and this and that? And I said, it depends on who I had with me.
For sure, yeah.
And I had a co-host who was terrific with it. You were outstanding. You were really, really good at knowing how to play off of it.
Uh-huh.
Because then it would keep it light, fun, and moving.
Yeah.
But I've been on the air, like, I was on somewhere in, like, North Carolina, Stu and Lou Holtz, and I was going, and they full-on correct me, like, hey, Coach, just so you know, that's actually North Carolina. I think you got that wrong. It's like, where do we go now, right? Like, so there's a way to play off of one another. Joe has that ability as a basketball announcer. Gordon had that beautifully as a co-host, and I thought you did as well. And to your point, it becomes something the listener, like, it becomes a part of them. That's when, and then also the authenticity starts to show more in the show host and the fun that goes in that. Yeah. There's nothing that beats it.
Yeah, and Gordon was such a great sport because I just used to crack him over the head, and he would play because Gordon's a very sharp guy, and he's a very good rider, and he's very good.
Don't get fooled.
Very sharp guy, but he was a very good sport whenever I just crack on him. I forgot about the Isola thing. It's funny because I remember we did a lot of Jazz pre-half and post-game shows in addition to working with each other day to day. And the KOC stuff was like so good because I didn't know you had a good KOC before we started working. And for our listeners, KOC at the time was Jazz executive Kevin O'Connor, not the ringer writer or whoever that guy is. And Kevin had kind of phased himself out of the organization, like Dennis Lindsay was kind of in. And I just remember like your KOC rants where you would quote like TLC waterfalls.
Tupac.
And I would stop you like, KOC, that's TLC. You can't use that. You can't pretend like that's your own. You need to stop. And it made those late nights so much fun. We had Britton who would fall off chairs and Jake would stop by. Those were fun days of radio.
They were great days, and I enjoyed it because it was lighthearted. The best part about the KOC one, that was the only one where we got directed, okay, you have to stop doing that.
Right.
And I was like, okay, we make it pretty obvious it's not him.
Yeah.
Because I'd literally be going off, we're going to line up every possible draft pick. We have them do the Krispy Kreme challenge. And whichever one can finish it and hit a three-pointer, that's the guy that goes to the top of the draft board. Clearly not something
the
he was
problem
saying.
is your voice sounds just like his. That was the issue.
We would get people not in the league necessarily, but in the market, who would say, like, wow, I heard him last night talking about this whole thing and like how Tupac inspired him to do this. Right. And finally, the organization had to say, look, man, we know it's funny. We know it's a spoof, but enough people are actually thinking Kevin O'Connor is coming on the post-game show talking about this.
Just dropping random lyrics or talking about what he wants for Christmas, just weird things like
80s Walkman headset.
Like this
so
stuff, good.
Whatever. And it was so blatant.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where they had to shut it down.
No, it was fun, though. It's funny because I've often thought about, I'll get people all the time like, hey, you're going to Jazz games this year. How many games have you been to? And I don't know if it was because we were at basically all of them for 7 straight years, with some exceptions here or there. It's a different ask to do that pre-half and post-game when they're bad. Like, we started working together. I think it was Ty Corbin's, maybe Ty's last year was my first year on the pre-half and post. Maybe Ty's first year.
You did the lockout year.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
so it was the playoff year they snuck in.
Yeah.
36 and 30, I think.
And so, there was not a lot of hope with that team. And due respect to guys like Paul Millsap and Al Jefferson, Kevin O'Connor did the best he could by parlaying the Boozer. Booze leaves for Chicago. The Jazz got a trade exception, so Kevin used it to get Al Jefferson. It was kind of like, let's put a Band-Aid on this till we can figure something out, which they did with Hayward and Favors, and that group started to go forward. But Ty's last year, Quinn's first year, those were long nights. I mean, it was tough to make that very interesting. I can't imagine what it's like trying to polish this turd.
No,
this
is tough, too, because that team, at least, they were trying to win. It was, okay, what's the next move? What are you trying to do? The hard part is it's clear what they're doing. the challenge is, now that you know what they're doing, this has never really been a part of what the Jazz do. So then you have to be like, hey, this guy's looking good here. This is going well there. I mean, trying to figure out, like to speak positively on it, and then also be aware and cognizant of clearly what the organization's doing.
Right,
and I've said it before, love it, hate it, they have a vision for long-term future success like the Celtics just had last year. This was the start of it. What was fun about those nights and what made it really special was the people that we would have and listeners who were a part of a team that didn't win a ton, and you weren't sure exactly what was going on. They had a lot of fun listening to KOC. There was nothing funnier than the authentic human element version of Britton Johnson. When he would randomly be like, yeah, you'd ask him something, and he'd go, in the mic, and they'd be like, I don't know, I think, wait, are we on air?
Yeah. Right now. Yes, talking to that microphone.
Yes, we're on air right now.
And we have been.
Because he would sit there and watch TV.
Yeah.
And blank out.
Yep.
And then you would ask him something, and he's like, well, I don't know. Well, hold on. Are we on air?
Yeah.
And you're like, like those moments, like he was so intentionally and unintentionally funny that it gave it a human element to the whole thing. And the one time, I mean, I had several moments with him where I'm like, yeah, the breaking news, this and that, the other. Derek Favors is going to play tonight. He's back. I said the ankle feels good, whatever it is. Alongside Britton Johnson, I'm Tony Parks. Britton, we have this, we have this, we have that, and it's the Jazz and Cavs here on a, Saturday night. He goes, yeah, no, it's interesting. Now, do we know if Favors is playing? Or do we? I'm like, well, I just announced.
Said that, yeah.
The breaking news.
Yeah. No, he would get distracted, kind of like that dog in Up that saw squirrels.
Yes.
Because I could, on a number of occasions, like you just outlined, I would kind of bring us back in. I would set the scene, Hayward this, whatever. And then I'd ask him a question. He'd be like, I forgot what you asked me. He just completely forgot the entire thing. And, of course, when he fell off his chair.
That was
And we had the audio.
And I just plowed right
You
through
did. It was quintessential you. It was quintessential Jake. Jake's laughing. You're the pro that just – and Britt and his 6'10", 6'11" frame sprawled out. I mean, it was fun. But, it's a tough ask, Tony, as far as what they're doing this year. And as I say all the time, and I get some flack from some of the guys down there that do listen to some of the stuff we do, it just sucks. It's such a tough ask. Now, as I've been saying all year, it's probably the right course of action based off of their failure to see exactly how they needed to handle this when they traded Gobert and when they traded Mitchell. Like this whole narrative they've tried to further over the past few weeks, like, hey, we haven't been rebuilding because we've been tearing down for 3 years. I'm like, who is buying that? You started rebuilding when you traded Donovan and you traded Rudy, and a really smart head coach didn't want to work for you, and a really smart general manager decided he was done too. That's the rebuild. That's when it starts. If you took 3 years to tear it down, you did it wrong. So they're finally doing it right. It's just really hard. You know me, I'll watch basketball at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But this is a tough one to stomach. Watching them this year has been really difficult.
I think this one, and that's why I've told the fans, if you're the person who says, look, I'm not going to spend my money until you get serious about moving upward, that doesn't make you arrogant, doesn't make you selfish, doesn't mean you're a bad fan, doesn't mean that, well, don't come around when this team starts winning. Well, no, this is a business. And this is about money for you. It's about money for me if I'm a fan. And I have, when I was in Chicago, we were the same way. We talked about, okay, the Bears do this, they're dysfunctional here. But you're going to the games and you're spending the money and you're this and that. And I thought, right. And if you don't, it doesn't make you less of a fan.
For sure.
When the McCaskey family just completely botches everything they're doing. So when I'm watching what's happening here, I'm like, no, in any way you make the decision. This is really unfamiliar territory because even when the Jazz weren't good, you were like, okay, here's what they're trying to do. Here's what they could be doing. Okay, Quinn's first year, you remember they finished, 16-7 their last 23 games? Something like that. And you're like, wow, I remember they beat like Tony Parker and the Spurs one night, beat Russell Westbrook and OKC, and they had like this stretch of winning where you're going, man, they're winning with Bryce Cotton and Chris Johnson and Jack, what was that dude's name? Oh, it's going to drive me.
Jack.
He's a big center.
The big Notre Dame kid?
Oh, man. He was like a fan favorite for 15 minutes. And Jack Cooley.
Yeah. I
You know,
remember Jack Cooley.
they're winning games with,
Yeah.
just a bunch of dudes out
You
there.
could see Quinn had some juice.
It was outstanding.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, there's a future. It's right around the corner. With this, it's tough. It's tough because now you're waiting for a draft pick to be a splash, to win some headlines, to do this. What I was in agreement with the Rudy Donovan thing because I just felt like they were so far out of alignment that there was a trust issue altogether somewhere there, and you should start over anew. I did not think they would be quite in this position 3 years. I really didn't. I thought, all right, 1, maybe 2, and then you have all the assets and enough to work with that you could move up in drafts and you can have the culture of defensive mindset and going forward with the principles, kind of like Quinn did, where you start to see an upward surge.
So I'll always wonder, and this is just simply anecdotal, hypothetical. It's not real. It doesn't matter. But I'll always wonder if Danny decided to do the Donovan deal and not the Rudy deal. A, does Quinn stay? Okay. And B, what does that look like? Because if you do the Mitchell deal and you bring in Markkanen, and you get, 4 or 5 draft picks and swaps from the Cavs, and you get a bulk of draft capital that way, and you don't do the Gobert deal, does Quinn stay? Does Dennis stay? And the answer to both of those questions might be no, because I just don't think they wanted to work for this new ownership group, and I'll let them answer that in their own time in whatever way they prefer to do it. But if we play the hypothetical where you do the Mitchell deal and you get Markkanen, and you keep Bogdanovich, you keep Conley, Royce, Ingles. I mean, at that point, Joey was a little bit older. He'd hurt his ACL. We used to talk about Royce like he was Bruce Bowen from 1999, and he just wasn't. I don't know how big I was on him. But you get the point. Like, so you have Gobert, you have Markkanen, you have Bogdanovich, you have Conley, then the other bit pieces that you have. And then you utilize the Mitchell trade to get the draft capital that you need to keep kind of building around the edges. I don't know. I mean, that's probably still nothing more than a top 6 or 7 seed in the West. So it's not like there's a lot of upward trajectory. But based off of how bad it's been and how unwatchable they've been for 3 years now, I think I'll always kind of wonder what that looked like if they trade Donovan and then keep Gobert. Then you give Donovan what he wants. He clearly didn't want to be here anymore. You keep a guy that's still really good that wanted to be here in Rudy, and then you figure out ways to kind of supplement that group, and your bulk would be Gobert, Markkanen, Conley, Bogdanovich. It's not a championship team, but it's not this. I think it gives the fans at least something to hold on to.
Okay, so, and I don't think you're entirely wrong on that. My perception is, this is perception based on, the people that you get to know and talk to, and I know you've talked to a number as well. My perception is the reason they moved both is because whatever the issue was, each of them had a problem in this, the trust issue that exists. There's no way you can look at that roster and how they underperformed and say that there wasn't a trust issue. Clearly, there was something that was not wrong. They had no business being that bad defensively at times, being a one and done in the NBA playoffs. I mean, they were built with a defensive player of the year, budding superstar, all-star point guard, a guy that had been to games, 6th man of the year. I mean, come on, man. A dead-eye shooter. I mean, you're looking at real weapons here. And that it wasn't going to work. So my thought was when they traded both, I thought it was a good move because whatever the issues were, say, with one of them, like each of them had their faults. If you move one, keep the other is always going to feel that their part of this issue was not a problem. It's going to be impossible to convince them that, yes, we moved them, yes, we kept you, yes, we want you, yes, we believe in you, but you still got to change this. This was toxic, or this was bad, or this was hurtful to the team. You are never going to convince them of that because the results of the situation, they stayed, the other guy was gone, and the perception is that guy was the problem, not me. The reality is each of you more than likely contributed to this issue. That even a Hall of Fame caliber coach, in my opinion, which is I think what Quinn is, I think he's a mastermind. I'm a huge fan of him. That was the way I looked at it, was that if you kept one, it would be impossible to convince them to get rid of the part that was a part of for them to get rid of the problem issue that they contributed to.
I get what you're saying, and I think ultimately I understand why they landed on the decision to move on from both of them. I do think, and the timing here is interesting as I think back on it. I think when Quinn said to them, I'm not doing this, it was always interesting to me that dog and pony show they had where the press conference when they were announcing that Quinn was leaving, how he just thanked the Millers profusely and walked over to them profusely and gave them, that was Quinn's chance to give Gail her flowers and the Millers her flowers. If you go back and listen to that and watch it, he didn't say anything about Danny, didn't say anything about Ryan. I think when the ownership transition changed, and I have some insight on Quinn running practices and folks from the new ownership group showing up and kind of announcing their arrival at practices and how this was going to be the new normal, that even before the season was over, Quinn's like, I'm not interested in this. Right, wrong, and different. I'm not interested in this. Okay, Ryan and his group have a different approach than the Millers had. And only time will tell to see if his approach is actually going to work at some point. I think it's only fair to say that the approach right now has bred bad results, and I think it's bred some awkward jersey announcements and things around the peripheral, and certainly things behind closed doors that I do know about that I'll choose to keep to myself. And I do understand why ultimately they did land on the decision to move on from both. Like I said, I think the Quinn call that I'm out expedited their decision-making to break the whole thing down. Here's my issue. That's when you broke things down, not now. Don't sell to the fan base that it's taken us 3 years to break it down. No, it didn't. And that's on you if it did, because what you're saying, because you always have to translate between the lines to get to the truth, what you're saying is you did a bad job initially of deciding on a direction, because you know where no man's land is in the NBA? Right in the middle. Mm-hmm. And that's the group they had Will's first year. Then they decided to break it down in February. And in a way, it was kind of the group they had year 2. And then they break it down after the deadline so they can maintain their draft capital. That is a series of bad decisions when you're running a basketball team in the NBA. You either go all in, okay, or you're all out so you can rebuild quicker. I think they essentially wasted 2.5 years. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I wanted, and I don't even know Will Hardy all that well, but I'm a huge fan of him. I've watched him work. I've been up close to see him at work, and I really like him. I really, really like him. And that's why I thought he should be getting an extension. Because he overperformed, and then you tore it down. Overperformed again, tore it down. Now there's this future of when are you going to start accelerating winning at a high level? I don't want him in the situation where, he now has to turn from 44-point third quarters in the blink of an eye and 48-point, gashing defensive issues and stuff like that. It's hard to get people to hold themselves accountable on that end of the floor if they can clearly see what's going on. And if you think their agent's like, hey, get in there and take a charge, prove your worth, you're wrong. No, protect yourself, be careful, put the ball in the basket, increase your worth and stay healthy. So it's really hard now to go, okay, guys, we're going to start winning now. It's time to start digging in deep. Culture, culture, culture. No, because you have no base for that. Like, what's the Jazz culture? Right. What is Utah Jazz culture
right now? It is undefined.
And
it is a work in progress.
Even when this team wasn't that good, 26 wins or whatever it was in the year you and I were doing it where they didn't win much with Jamal Tinsley and company, when he said they were going to shock the world.
That was John Lucas III.
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot about that.
He was like, we're shocking the world. Like, no,
we're going to come out, we're going to shock the world. And I was like,
no, you're not. You might win 30 games. Nobody's getting shocked.
If you, okay. But you and I were talking about that back then. But there was at least, okay, there's a culture here. There's an identity. There's some definition. There's some direction. To this situation here, it's not there. That's why I wanted Hardy to have an extension. In my opinion, they owe it to him to be fair to him with a long-term vision. So when you start the cycle that way, he gets some time to weed out some more of that to get them to where they ultimately want to go. Heart, mind, and soul in the proper alignment.
And I share your optimism about Will. I really do. And it's not just because of what I've seen since he's been here. It's conversations I've had with people that have known him for years, like he coached with Jeff Van Gundy, USA Basketball. Will Hardy could get a job in pro basketball tomorrow if he decided to leave the Jazz. My fear is, because look, Tony, if you look around at the West right now, it is so freaking stacked. It's not just at the top. I mean, Oklahoma City is good, and they're young, and they've got a grip of draft capital. They're going to be awesome forever. The fact of the matter is the Jazz are not a Cooper flag away from being even close to fine in this conference. No. The fact of the matter is they are a marathon away of being back to where we're used to seeing them more often than not, which is at least competitive in the Western Conference landscape and offering fans hope as some of their young players develop. My fear is if they can't get something done this offseason and next year looks like this year because they want the Bansa kid or one of the Boozer twins or whatever, and then we're dealing with the same thing next offseason, if that doesn't breed tremendous talent for Will to work with, what does he do after 5 years here, walking into gyms to have a gunfight when he's got a switchblade in his back pocket? He simply cannot keep up with his peers in the coaching world because he doesn't have players. What does he do if 5 years pass and they haven't given him talent?
That's a great point. I had this conversation with a family member the other day. I said, look, it worked in Boston. I got it. It took 12 years, by the way. It took 12 years. It was long-term. I got that. I understand it was 4 years and not a lot happening, but then they had the draft picks that they had multiple that they landed on with dudes who started to emerge. But they were in, maybe it was the fourth year, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was the fourth or fifth year. They're in the second round of the playoffs, if I remember right. Like, they're actually, competing really well. You could see direction. You could see. And, it took a lot of patience. It worked. It was a long-term plan, blah, blah, blah. There's also the chance of this, that it doesn't work. And if it doesn't, man.
You're the Wizards of the West.
I mean,
you're the Washington Wizards of the Western Conference, and Larry Markkinen is Bradley Beal.
Really sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Because this fan base I got it. They didn't win a championship. They put together a great formula to put themselves on the doorstep. I thought Dennis Lindsey did a great job to put together the formula. A top-flight coach, cornerstone pieces, right? You had, you could see it. And what happened is the leadership of those guys, I know they were not Stockton and Malone necessarily, but your key cornerstone pieces, there were issues there. With Stockton and Malone, there were not to that level. Okay, well, some of those things are out of your control when you're a GM, all right? So there's a different way to go. Well, they flushed all the way out and said, we're going to do this totally different. I thought, okay, I respect that. But you're gambling on the fact that you're going to be right with this.
Yep.
And you got the assets, you got this, you got all these wonderful things. I got it. But yeah, hearing that was one of those where I'm like, okay, there's no promise this thing's going to work either.
No, it's predicated on a lot of luck.
Like,
that's a tough plan to sell to a fan base. Now, if the luck falls into place, and again, to your point, which is well taken and founded in information and fact, we all understand that this is a long game play. The problem is you didn't start the long game 3 years ago when you traded a 25-year-old in his prime and a 28-year-old still very effective defensively. That's a massive risk for a team that plays in Salt Lake to move on from pieces. Do we all understand why they did it? Yes.
Yes.
But it was the failure to implement the plan immediately and then treading water, and then now you're doing it. And I just have to wonder if we would see more traction in a positive direction if they actually started the plan 3 years ago when they traded away their cornerstones.
Exactly. Because the one thing I thought we would see by this time, identity, culture, clear mindset, there's a clear feel, vibe. Okay, this player, he may not be a Hall of Famer, but he represents the mindset, the attitude, what we're looking for. You can feel that in the locker room. You can sense that there.
Yeah.
Instead of, wow, this is a great stretch of play for this guy here. He's young. He's this. He's young. He's young. He's young. That's great.
Yeah.
And there's flashes and there's moments, and I'm not saying that it's all negative, but I still don't see clear-cut identity, culture, and I did think we'd see that by now. I'm not saying they can't find it, and I'm not saying this plan isn't going to work. But I'm not going to say, well, look what Boston did. Copy, paste, here we go. Oh, no, there's no promise for that.
No, there's not
at
all.
There's no promise for that because Philadelphia did this forever, and I get it that they've had some threatening years and things like that. But, man, this thing, where are they at right now during this time of the year?
16 and 63.
Right now they're 23 and 55, Philly is.
Oh, Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jazz are 16 and 63.
Yeah.
And again, we
but
know
Philly,
the deal.
23 and 55.
Right.
Remember with the Embiid stuff,
Right.
and they flattened out for a long time. They didn't win a ring in this, and right now they've got all sorts of disasters.
Yeah.
So it does have to come together just right. It does take a long time, and there's no guarantee it's going to work.
Well, and there was a generationally special player available in Victor Wembanyama 3 years ago after they decided to move off Mitchell and Gobert a couple of years ago. And they had this team that was middling and staying competitive and winning games, and to what end? And somebody over there said, well, we're trying to tank, but our coach is too good. And I said, who coaches the Spurs? Like, what are you talking about? The Spurs traded away a 25-year-old all-star 2 in DeJounte Murray and a bunch of other pieces because they knew that this kid in France could change their entire organization. Mm-hmm. So when I was fed the line, like, our coach is too good, we can't tank. Like, who coaches the Spurs? What are you talking about? Like, we'll end it there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is a test of a pain tolerance for a basketball market that simply is used to seeing at least a team that shows they're moving in the right direction. And I can't lie to listeners, and I can't, tell you that Isaiah Collier is this or Keontae George is that or what. I honestly don't know. I have question marks about pretty much every player on the roster, and I do feel like they have a really, really good coach, but I am a little bit nervous to see what he does if they can't give him talent. All right, Tony, you've taken up too much of your time.
No,
before I set you loose, let's hit the bees stuff one more time. SLBees.com for tickets. Not opening day, but the home opener is tomorrow. And so tell our listeners what you want them to know.
Well, I want you to know that you're going to get a terrific experience when you go there. Everything's leveled up in every single way. That's what's happening. And you know what I think is really cool, too, is tonight, Jeff Reeves being honored there with the Utah Sports Hall of Fame. I'm headed over to that. You're going to that tonight, too, right?
My my high school basketball coach, coach Mike Maxwell is being inducted tonight, so we'll be over there.
Yeah, former Bountiful Brave head coach, Highland Ram alum, I believe.
Correct. Yeah. And Tony, as you know, historians often say that the 1997 Bountiful Braves, greatest high school basketball. Now, I don't say that.
I know one historian that says that.
No, I want to be clear. I don't say that, but people who study it, know the numbers, and break down analytics, they often say that.
I don't think they had the depth. That guy didn't have enough good players coming off the bench.
That's fair.
I know one of them.
No, excited to catch up with our teammates tonight.
It's going to be really cool. But no, with Jeff being honored for that. And then, look, when the fans go there, you're going to love it because now it's a new experience. It's a new standard. All of that is going to be top shelf, top level, and I'm excited for, something that's new, something that's historic. Now, remember, it's not just historic because you're going to this minor league stadium that's new, but there's the anticipation of Major League Baseball being in the future, being a part of what's going on. Love what the organization is doing in terms of their fast-forward vision on doing everything that it takes in their control to be in the very best possible position for something like this to happen someday. How long would it take for it to? I will never know because there's a ton of dominoes that fall. But, there's those who say, boy, this would be nice. And then there's those who put so many things into action to say we are more serious than anybody and we're willing to invest what it takes. And I think that's been fun about this offseason. I've worked for a minor league baseball team for a long time. This doesn't feel like I work for a minor league baseball team.
That's excellent.
With the way they invest in what they're doing, it's always what is major league caliber level? What does it take to get there? Do it. And I'm like, wow.
Love it.
This is great. We'll be on KMYU tomorrow night. If you can't make it out to the game, we'll be on KMYU, and KJ has a series of 38 different games this year.
Very nice.
So we talk about not being able to make it out. We hope you enjoy the broadcast. We know a lot of people in this market love baseball, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
SLBees.com for more info. They've got a great ticket deal going on right now. The weather looks great for opening week, which is always good. Tony, my friend, great to see you, okay?
Hey, thanks. You as well, man. You look good.
Thank you, sir. We'll catch a quick break. 5 o'clock hour of the program comes your way next, right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time, Monday afternoon style. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a great weekend. And, of course, as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass. Final hour of the program on this lovely spring-like Monday afternoon. Looking at about 66, 67 degrees. Should be a good week of spring-like weather. And if you like sunshine like I do, that's good news for people like us. College basketball will crown its national champ in just about an hour and a half from right now as Florida is taking on Houston. It's only the 5th time in college basketball history that the two teams playing in the national championship are both number 1 seeds, and they both won their conference tournaments. Both these two teams have been incredibly impressive. The Vegas line favors Florida by 1 point. Basically a pick 'em. Over-under is 140.5. Both those lines have moved in the direction of the Houston Cougars over the past couple of hours. So, college basketball, final game of the season, final game of March Madness, even though it is now April, will take place tonight between Florida and Houston. All right, we've had a very, very busy show today with a lot going on. Special thanks to Josh Furlong, who stopped by right out of the gates to talk some Utah football, Utah basketball. Utah football spring ball rolls along. There was a scrimmage on Saturday, open to the public. If you missed any of the sound, log on to ESPN700sports.com and check that out. Alex Jensen joined Sean O'Connell today. Sean hosts the show prior to ours. The Sean O'Connell show can be heard 11 to 2 here on ESPN 700. A good conversation if you missed that. Also, log on to ESPN700sports.com. It is a light night in pro basketball because typically the NBA takes this night off. I was surprised to learn that the Kings and the Pistons are playing, as are the 76ers and the Heat. So, big night in college basketball, kind of a light night in the world of the NBA. It is Masters Week in the world of pro golf. Weather knocked the players off Augusta National today, but it looks like it's going to be okay the rest of the week through the weekend. 76 degrees, winds around 7 to 10 miles per hour on Thursday. So the par 3 on Wednesday, and then the Masters tournament, round 1, will start on Thursday. 5 o'clock hour of the program today is brought to you by Cortland Roofing. Cortland Roofing is your go-to for all of your re-roofing, roof repairs, and roof maintenance needs. Free insurance analysis, free estimates, and senior discounts, too, can be found at cortlandroofing.com. Good new sponsor on the program. So there you go. We're going to bring in Tom Haberstroh. We'll do a little preview of tonight's national championship game and talk about the epic collapse that we saw from the Duke Blue Devils. They were outscored 9-0 over the final 40 seconds of their loss to Houston. And what does this mean for the future of Cooper Flagg? I mean, a lot of people are talking about the dynamic of maybe this motivates him to come back to school for a year. Can't speak to it, but of course, if you're a Jazz fan and you're watching your team lose games the way the Jazz are losing, they're 1-19 in their last 20. I think 3 wins since the All-Star break. This all has to be for something, and hopefully it's for the number 1 overall pick. And hopefully that number 1 pick is Cooper Flagg, and he's playing for the Utah Jazz next year. Who wants to golf at Bonneville? One of my favorite little tracks, a little muni here in Salt Lake. Well, it's ESPN Festival of Tees, not the Festival of Trees. It's ESPN's Festival of Tees, powered by the Utah Golf Association. Each day of spring, ESPN 700 is giving away rounds of golf from the best courses in the state. Listen to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell from 10 to 11, the Sean O'Connell Show from 11 to 2, and then this little radio program, which is called The Drive with Spence Checketts from 2 to 6 for your chance to win each day from ESPN 700 and the Utah Golf Association. More details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. And today we're giving away 18 holes at Bonneville, one of my favorite tracks. So text in 877-353-0700. Say something nice about Porter, and he'll pick somebody. Is that, you want to do that?
There we go. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Look,
this is what a radio show should be like. Just open up the phone lines, compliment the producer.
All I do is spread love in the market. Nobody gives me the credit I deserve, but that's all I do. I'm just spreading love every day.
At least today.
That was rude. 877-353-0700. Just text. He's on YouTube. Look at his hair. He's got long hair. Text something nice about Porter. He'll send you to Bonneville. Maybe I need to text something nice about you because you can't get a tea time at Bonneville these days anyway.
I'm sure you could.
I can't. You have to be on at 8 a.m. a week prior to when you want it, and then if you're on at like 8:10, they're all gone.
Well, maybe we can see what we can do here.
I'm telling you, can we get Easton? Get Easton on the show.
I will.
Easton Folster, our guy, UGA director, because I have a new movement that I want to implement for the game of golf. It's called Shrink the Game. We've been growing the game for years, and guys like me can't get tee times. It's unfair.
See, now we're reverting. We're reverting, Spence, back to the ways of golf past. This elitist experience on the country club. Come on, man.
Come on.
Open the game.
Shrink the game. Stop making tee times. Then you go up and they're like double. You know what? Let's break. But there are double dates. People are learning, and then it's a 6-hour round. Then my whole day is ruined.
I have in the last 5 or so years seen some instances like that where usually you wouldn't see such a backup on a golf course. But yeah, there's like a couple that's never played before, and they don't realize that they're taking 5 hours, but there's also people behind them. Yeah, it happens.
Rate of play, rate of play, rate of play, rate of play. The movie's called I Love You, Man. Remember that scene when Siegel gets hit in the shin with a golf ball?
A little bit, yeah.
And that's the problem, because then, the guy's trying to hurry things along, and then the girl's complaining that she can't learn if she doesn't practice, and then I'm just back there angry. Anyway, hopefully you guys go to Bonneville and enjoy it, because apparently I can't golf up there. Festival of Tees. Text in something nice about Porter. We're going to send you to Bonneville Golf Course. All right, we're going to preview tonight's national championship game. We're going to talk some NBA prospects coming up on the other side with Tom Haberstroh on a Monday Drive. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, college basketball is going to crown their national champ tonight. Florida Gators, Houston Cougars coming up 6:50 Mountain Time on CBS at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. I have not done my yearly diatribe on the silliness of playing basketball in a football arena. It's so dumb.
It's hard too.
I was going to say, if you've ever tried to shoot on a bucket on a makeshift court at a football facility, the sight lines are jacked up. Your depth perception is off. It's for football. It's not for basketball. I mean, every year we do this because we want as many fans because you're trying to make money. I get it. But for the product itself and for the players, it's not conducive to playing high-level basketball.
Any stadium or arena, and basketball players will relate to this, that doesn't have like equal backgrounds, right, on the different hoops, you'll have wacky field goal percentages early, maybe the first games, not the second games, but first half. It takes guys time to adjust to, like you said, different sight lines in arenas, and I've seen it really, really play a hand. What's funnier to me is like when they played the game on I think it was a naval ship, and guys were just airballing for the warm-ups until like halfway through the game they finally dialed in. Yeah, man, it really does affect the way you play when you can't really see what's going on behind the hoop.
Tonight's Prize Picks lineup, baby. You ready for it? All right. Here's what we're doing. Okay, on Prize Picks, you pick more or less on player stat projections. I have LJ Cryer for less than 17.5 points. I have Walter Clayton Jr. for more than 20 points. By the way, one of my favorite players to watch in all of college basketball. I actually told you this, and I'm mad at myself because I did not trust my instinct. For whatever reason, every time I watch Florida this year, I'm like, they're awesome. And I didn't even pick him to make the Final Four. That Clayton Jr. kid, I love watching him play, man. He's stone cold.
And kind of on an opposite note, I told myself in, I want to say, mid-February, I was watching Houston play. And I said, they may not have the best player on the floor. They may not have the fifth best player in the country. But they're going to outrun everybody to a national championship. And then I went with Auburn instead at the last second because I second-guessed myself. And, hey, Houston is still here standing. And, again, it's their versatility. Yeah, they got standout players, but it's kind of the by committee thing that they're just relentless. So fun to watch.
Milos Uzan, more than 12.5 points. Thomas Houck, less than 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Elijah Martin, who's a beast of an athlete, more than 12.5 points. Juwan Roberts, Houston's big, more than 20 points, rebounds, and assists combined. None of this is anything you should pay attention to. Prize Picks has just asked me to do it. So there you go. Who you got before we say goodnight? Who do you think wins the game?
Oh, man. I'm gonna go with Houston due to what I just said. I've had a feeling that they physically it feels like their effort, like not saying that Florida's going to come out here and lay an egg. That's a team that's going to play really hard. But I just haven't seen anyone match the intensity of Houston all year long. And I think that when you can do that for a 5-month stretch, man, you're probably going to do it on the day of the national championship. And I think Houston does that tonight. And I think Kelvin gets himself a national title. We'll see.
I will take the Florida Gators only because of the show dynamic. I have no idea what's going to happen. It is a 1-point spread. I'm not usually good at filling out a bracket because it's an exercise in futility, but mine was done pretty quickly. So I think Florida gets it done tonight, but I don't feel good about it.
I think they have the best player on the floor, and if it comes down to a possession or two game, late, final minute, then, I'll lean towards Florida because I think that's when big players make big plays. But I got Houston by 6 or 7.
Houston's got something. You're not wrong about that. By the way, are you watching The White Lotus?
Not yet. Still early. Remember, I'm going to wait until like 4 seasons are on HBO, and then I'll go find it.
All right. Well, then I will say nothing.
Maybe I'll catch up.
Last night was the season 3 finale. And
there's 3 seasons.
Yeah.
I'll go watch it then. I'll go watch it.
First of all, it's awesome. It's really entertaining. It's very well written. Mike White created it. He is obviously a very creative guy. And I got to say, I didn't see any of that coming last night. For all of you White Lotus fans, the ending very much caught me off guard. And that's the most entertaining type ending, very Breaking Bad-ish, where you're not,
You said Mike White. Who is that? Is that like other shows that we would recognize? Is there a...
Mike White, You might know him as Sarah Silverman's boyfriend in School of Rock. I think it's Ned Schneebly.
No, Ned Schneebly.
Ned Schneebly. That's Mike White.
What?
It's honestly the only, because he's not really an actor. He's more of a director and a producer and a writer.
Oh, I heard this.
I want to say the only thing I've ever seen him in was School of Rock is that gooby boyfriend, Ned Schneebly or whatever, who dated Sarah Silverman. I think that's the only thing I've ever seen him in.
That's right. This is actually a fun fact I heard a long time. Ned Schneebly wrote a lot of the School of Rock, I think. Or Nacho Libre, I think. I think he's involved in a lot of that stuff. So there you go. Fun fact, Ned Schneebly. Not just Ned Schneebly.
The only thing I'd ever seen him in. And Sarah Silverman was not very nice to him in School of Rock. If I was Ned, I'm out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to start the band with Jack Black. Anyway, weird show today. We did learn that the plural of octopus is octopi.
We didn't learn that.
We did not learn that.
You are going against science. You think you know more than scientists.
Well, look, based off my social media feed, a bunch of my college friends think they know more than scientists.
Yeah.
They're epidemiologists, and now they're tariff experts, which is amazing.
There we go.
The same morons that I went to school with. But anyway, I just feel more comfortable saying octopi than octopuses.
That's fair. You can say octopedes as well.
All right. Anyway, weird show. Porter, before we get out of here, what comes our way on hopefully a more normal Tuesday show?
A lot of hoops on a Tuesday show. Tony Jones stops by the program. Tim McMahon for our NBA Daily Assist. And then, of course, as we wrap up the college basketball season, we have to get our guy Ken Pomeroy on the show. And coming off a win, how about it? RSL Kurt Schmidt joins the program. I know they got the W, but you're going to have a lot more questions for Kurt as well off the field.
I am putting Kurt's feet to the fire tomorrow. Of course, he joins us after a win. ITs, love the guy. We'll see if they're able to make some signings prior to the window closing. All right, we'll get out of here. Special congratulations to my high school basketball coach, Mike Maxwell, being inducted into the Utah Sports Hall of Fame tonight. Going to go stop by and pay my respects. Special thank you to Josh Furlong, Tom Haberstroh, Belle Frazier, and Tony Parks for any of the sound you may have missed from the show. The website is ESPN700sports.com. Our mobile app is the ESPN 700 app. That's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then our podcast, which we are hoping that you will support because it does help us out. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Whatever platform you use, we're there. Just do a search, whatever that platform asks you to do. If it's a follow, if it's a subscription. And then if you say nice things in the comments and you give us all the stars they allow you, it helps the program. If you like what we do, we'd appreciate your support. Reporter, I'm Spence, saying goodnight. Enjoy some national championship college basketball action and a little NBA hoops, too. And we'll talk to you on a Tuesday drive. And as always, you can find it right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of